Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 275. I am Peter, and joining me on this episode is Matt.
Hey, fresh out of lockdown. They couldn't keep me in there forever.
Yes, lockdown. Were you actually? Did you test positive? Was this a thing that I imagined?
No, I did.
Okay, you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I fell victim to the
The thing.
invisible hand.
So, just to clarify, I am the only member of this podcast now that has not caught it.
To be fair, Pete's the only one that doesn't usually leave his house. So,
I leave the house plenty.
Yeah, not like me and Connor do. And to be fair, I either picked it up at work or at the gym, and I was super safe, followed every protocol. So it just shows that, it's gonna get you. The nurse that works at my site was like, everyone's gonna have it by October, so I don't know what we're doing. I was like, don't say that. My anxiety doesn't need that. Hey, guess what happened the first week of October? Missed my birthday. I'm not happy.
Yeah, Matt had to take the last week off for his birthday, but then had to cancel every plan possible that he had anyway. So
yeah, and I wasn't in the mood to record or read. I was in a foul mood.
Oh, it didn't matter. We'd already recorded the episode on Tuesday. We that was
on if I wanted. Oh my god! Could you imagine my anger when I would go, "Hey guys, I can record now. I'm stuck at home Saturday," and you'd be like, "Oh, we've already done it." I would have thrown something.
Well, it's because it was the only day Connor had off. Like after the books came out, it was the Tuesday, so we had to record on the Tuesday.
Well, you had plenty of time to read your books this week in comparison.
Well, admittedly, we did skip the Wonder Woman book, and then I did a special segment with David later in the week and tacked it on. So you could have technically done that part if you wanted to, but
that's okay.
It's fine. We're here now. I should tell you though. So as a DC Comics podcast, I should tell you that first. We get our books, we talk about it. It's that simple. I'll tell you what's coming up on the show in a minute. But I should also tell you there's going to be a second episode this week. There's going to be a special this weekend, and the timing of this might be weird depending. Like patrons will definitely get this one first, but public might get the other one first. So DC Fandom is tomorrow. We're recording this on Friday, the day before Fandom, and Connor was being a little whiny that he was missing the episode because we'd already moved it to the Friday. And I said, look, do you want to record something after Fandom then? Especially since half of it's going to be video game stuff as well.
Yeah.
And Matt won't be here for it, so do you want to do a Fandom news special? So me and Connor will have another episode for you this weekend. Monday at the latest for public, maybe, if I'm putting it up early for pay. I don't know if I am. All of this is very last minute fuzzy details, but it's happening.
Gotcha. Here's my quick hot take. Says, being locked out for a week has made me a grumpy old man, especially on my birthday where I'm already feeling mortality. Like
I don't know.
All this Batman hype.
Yes.
Can we calm down, please?
You look good for 57, Matt. Shut up.
I know, right? If it was a good number. It's a football number. It's a number on my hockey jerseys. It's a good number. So anyway, it's on my name. It's probably where you pulled it from, didn't you?
Is it? I didn't pick it because of that, but now I'm thinking it might have subconsciously been the name, the number that I went to because it's always at the end of your Twitter handle.
God, I am so tired of seeing the Batman and Pattinson in my feed right now. This is what I get following comic book people.
I mean, honestly, the new trailer for that movie is by far the thing I'm most excited about for tomorrow's Fandom event. Because I'm actually looking forward to that movie as opposed to like all the other movies they've announced. so I hope it's a good trailer. Honestly, other than that, I'm hoping we get some concrete info for the video games that they've got going, because they showed the video games last time, but it was like, they're coming in like 2 years. It's like, oh well, okay, I'll just not be excited.
It's funny that we saw Starro in the Suicide Squad video game, and then I was like, I wonder if that has any impact in the movie. Yeah.
Oh, did we not know that at the time when that trailer came out?
No, we didn't. Like we had like we could make intimations based off of certain things. Rewatching Slither recently, and then keeping the eye on Starro from James Gunn's Suicide Squad, it just made sense. He likes monsters like that, so I don't know if one informed the other, but Starro just seems like a perfect James Gunn creature. So. But maybe they were already planning it for the video game. I'm not sure. So
I mean, it could be a coincidence. It could be a kind of thing where the video game was getting the story together as that script was being written, and they said, "Hey, for synergy's sake, have Starro." It could have been that simple. I mean, who's to say? But yeah, so fandom's coming tomorrow. There should be stuff on all of the movie projects that are in some level of being done or in production, and there should also be some TV stuff and the 2 video games that we know they've got working. And maybe there'll be a couple of new things that they announced that'll be exciting. Bizarrely, the one thing I'm not expecting is any actual comic book news, because last time they had no actual comic book news.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I don't know what could blow it out of the water. Like for fandom, like I don't know what kind of announcement would be on par with a new Batman trailer. You know what I mean? Comics are kind of quiet right now. You know what I mean? Another
movie trailer, or a new show, like announcement, like, oh, we're doing this show now or something. Comic book wise, like, I mean, if they give me anything, I'll be pleasantly surprised. But if they're going to announce a new ongoing by Mark Waid, tomorrow's the day, DC. Tomorrow's the day.
I feel like it's kind of already been announced. The Solicits.
Well, it's an ongoing though, right? It wasn't.
No, I don't know. It's kind of vague.
Well, we'll get to Solicits in a bit, because we had January Solicits to talk about today. And then, of course, in the books, we've got Strange Adventures issue 12, the final issue of another Tom King 12-issue special series.
Was it worth the wait? We'll find out.
That was a very ominous question. I think Matt may be leaning towards negativity on this one.
maybe not. I don't know.
We got Batman the Imposter issue 1, the new Black Label book. We have Wonder Woman 780. Matt's going to talk about that. Matt will talk about some of, but I will talk about all of Urban Legends issue 8. Matt will talk about Superman the Authority issue 4, and then I've got a Patreon book in the Joker issue 8, which also came out this week. So that's what's coming up on today's show book wise. But thankfully, and I know everyone was distraught last week because we recorded on Tuesday, Matt, so unfortunately it meant that there was no ComiXology top 10 to do.
I would walk out, but there's no one else to take my place. Because
you can't do it on a Tuesday. Even DC's books from the Tuesday aren't there yet, so there's no point.
Right.
But luckily it's Friday, Matt, so...
Yeah. Let me pull up, see what else came out this week so I can have a good guess. Because being under quarantine, I could not go get my physical books this week. So outside of DC, I have no idea what came out, because usually I peruse the wall when I go in, and not this week. Not this week at all.
Yeah, not a super strong week top 10 wise for DC. Number 1 was X-Men issue 4. You're
gonna make me guess, so I brought this up for nothing.
Well, usually, I mean, you give us a DC book. I feel like if I mean, you can guess number 2 if you want. It's another Marvel book. Just to narrow it down.
X-Force.
No, it's not an X book.
Not an X book. What else came out? Good lord, there's a lot of whack.
It's a pretty popular, long-running series.
Is it Immortal Hulk?
Longer running than that.
Oh shoot! Well, that doesn't say much at Marvel.
I mean, it has been renumbered. Don't get me wrong, but the title.
No, there it is. I don't know. These are all out of whack. They're not coming up in order like I wanted them to.
Matt, if I said to you, what's the first Marvel character you would think of when I say Marvel?
Spider-Man.
There you go, Spider-Man. And what's the first book that comes to mind when you say Spider-Man?
Amazing Spider-Man.
Amazing Spider-Man. Issue 76.
I forgot it was called Amazing Spider-Man and not Spider-Man, so I went down into by alphabet. Like, yeah, man.
Alphabet?
My brain doesn't work right now, okay?
Alphabet?
Alphabetable. You know what I mean?
Is that what they call a bowl of SpaghettiOs now? The alphabet spaghetti? It's just an alpha bowl?
That's right.
Number 3 is a DC book. Would you like to guess what the top selling DC book as of right now in ComiXology?
As of right now in ComiXology, I'm guessing it's a Bat book. No?
Yes.
No?
Yeah, yes.
It is. So that narrows it down. Urban Legend seems cost prohibitive. Let's go Batman 89.
It is Batman 89. That is number 3. And then number 4 is Immortal Hulk, issue 50, which you previously guessed. And then X-Force is number 5, which you also brought up already. Superman the Authority, surprisingly, at number 6.
Wow.
I would not have expected that either. Number 7 is Strange Adventures, issue 12. So that's cool. And then Avengers, issue 49 at number 8. Number 9 is Star Wars Dr. Aphra. And then number 10 is Star Wars War of the Bounty Hunters. So not a super packed DC top 10. Wonder Woman and Joker come right after it though at 11 and 12. Urban Legends is down at 18, and then it's actually number 19 before we hit Batman the Imposter. So yeah, it's kind of a weird week for DC.
Very much.
A lot of the bigger titles aren't out this week, so it is what it is ultimately. But there you go. It's top 10. So Solicits, January Solicits for January 2022. Now, I mentioned this before we started, but for you at home, the kind audience, or in your car, or in your bathtub, wherever you're listening to this, because I know, there's a variety of locations
if you're in your bathtub, I hope it's on a Bluetooth speaker, and the speaker is far away from the water. That's what I hope for you.
I just hope you're relaxed, up with some candles. I hope you're being soothed by our voices, and especially since Connor's voice isn't here to ruin it every minute like he normally is.
that man, I could get so much what am I looking for? God damn, I'm in a brain fog. Mileage, that's the word, out of his Busta Rhymes tweet. I can't wait to bring it up as much as I can.
You have to give some context for this, Matt, for the audience.
So Connor's been watching all the Halloween movies, and he made it to he watched H2O, and then he watched Resurrection, and me and Pete had both warned him, like, the gap between H2O and Resurrection is, like, it's off a cliff. And then he's like, well, none of them can be as bad as that one. And then he started Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Yes.
And he put out a tweet that said, basically, I've never missed Busta Rhymes more. That's something to that extent.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm praying for Busta Rhymes to be back already, or something like that.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, Busta Rhymes has a prominent role in Halloween Resurrection, and it's a really stupid, dumb movie. But I will still take it every day over that Rob Zombie abomination. Thank you very much.
There you go.
So yes,
but I'll take the Rob Zombie over the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, because that was just straight trash.
I don't know if I'd go that far. I think I still hate the Rob Zombie Halloween.
At least Rob Zombie has a point of view, whereas Sam Bayer just was like, I'm making a movie. I used to make music videos. There's not much life to it. At least Rob Zombie's has a little. I don't like it, but anyways. But just Busta Rhymes has the line of Resurrection, and it's famous across the internet. I don't want to jump on it for people in case they're so inclined.
I don't know what sort of weird hipster flex just happened, but Matt just pulled the name of the director of Nightmare on Elm Street, Nightmare on Elm Street's remake, out of his ass like it was nothing.
Oh no, I grew up watching pop punk music videos excessively, and Sam Bayer directed a ton of them. So that's why I almost went and saw the Nightmare remake, and then remember all the horrible reviews. It's like, I'm gonna dodge this. I'd never even seen the original at that point.
Oh, why am I going to you're just a fan of his work then? That's what you're saying.
Well, because not every at that point we had not had the the major failure of commercial directors and music video directors to movies as yet. Like Fincher's, I think, the most successful that jumped from music videos to making narratives and whatnot. Anyways, long story short, Sam Bayer's not the director. I was like, what does he made sense? Really nothing. Nothing comes to mind. That movie kind of tanked his, Yet Rob Zombie still, for whatever reason, still making movies.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, so.
Unfortunately.
Anyway. Solicits.
Yes, Solicits. So I was saying this before we started, but for all you kind people, wherever you're listening to this, you'll notice that the last couple of Solicits have been like this weird half and half schedule where the last Solicits were like the back half of December and the first half of January, and the ones before that were the back half of November, the first half of December. And we thought maybe this is just a new normal. That doesn't seem to be the case. Maybe we'll find so much to look through, but from my quick skim beforehand, it does not look like there's any February solicits in here, but it does look like they repeat all of the first half of the month solicits at the end of the batch. So this may end up only really being a half amount of solicits compared to normal, but just bear that in mind, and we'll dig through, and hopefully don't repeat too many things. But I think it's a pretty clear break as to when it gets to the old stuff again. So we will start off with Batman One Dark Knight issue 2. This is the Jock Black Label book. Very pumped for that, for obvious beautiful art reasons. And I'm sure Matt's delighted it's another Batman ongoing book starting in January.
But, I would be grumpy, right? I started this by saying I'm kind of... And then you look at the creative team and how can I be...
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. You see, not only is it an exciting name, it's an exciting name who has done a couple of little things for DC, but has mostly been associated with Marvel for a long time. Yeah. But Chip Zdarsky is doing this new Batman book. It's called Batman the Night. This is issue. I was looking for the, 1 of 6 or whatever, right. and I couldn't find it. And I'm like, is this just an ongoing? Is it just an ongoing book? It doesn't say one shot, so...
right, DC's not Marvel. They're usually pretty clear about that. If it's going to be a mini,
and if you read the actual solicit text at the very end, it says so blah 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 in this definitive new series. So it's definitely a series. It's definitely more than one issue. So if they forgot to put in their mini text, then that's fair enough. But it's definitely more than one issue.
My only problem though is it seems like it's another Bat origin, and I'm kind of hit my limit with those. But this is Zdarsky, and did you say who the artist is? I
did not yet. It's Carmine D.J. Domenico, and I think what this cover makes me think of is it makes me think of Zdarsky's Daredevil, which from what I have read is fantastic. So it's hard not to be a little excited about him doing a Batman in the same vein.
I'll probably pick it up and be grumpy that there's more Bat books, but hey, if it's going to be a good Bat book, then I'll eat my words, Like I can't be grumpy. It's like Detective. I can't complain about how much I'm enjoying Tamaki on Detective.
Yeah, Matt's going to be so ashamed. He's going to go out in camp so he can read all his Bat books, and we'll make a film of it one day, and we'll call it Broke Bat Mountain.
Oh boy!
And he's just looking at his Batman comics, going, "I wish I knew how to quit you," as he cries reading these Batman books.
It happens at least when I put my comics away. I go, why do I have this much Batman? For someone that talks so much shit about Batman, why do I have so much of it? That's because Batman ends up getting really good creators, and I have to, like Chip Zdarsky and Carmine J. Domenico, and I have to.
Yes.
So, and the next solicit with Josh Williamson, who every time I say I'm going to stop getting Batman, they're like, "Oh, are you?" James Tynan's writing Batman now.
This is the weird bias. Well, bias isn't the right word, but the weird. No. Because Batman is successful, DC likes to put good creatives on it. So good creatives make you want to keep reading it, even if you're not as invested in the character. So,
and I mean, when I had enough Tomasi on Detective, I stopped. Right, like it was fine. I did not miss that book. Once Tamaki is done on Detective, I'm gonna miss her there. So, but she'll be done. I'll have the Batman the Night, maybe I'll like the Detective Comics person.
Yeah, whoever replaces Tamaki might end up being amazing too. There's just no way I'm knowing.
Yeah.
So yes, I think Batman 119 might actually be, if it's not an old solicit, that this is the cover we saw ages ago when they first announced Williamson has taken the book over with his new villain Abyss. So very cool. Excited to see where that goes. Detective Comics 1049 and 1050. We already knew about this happening, but this is just more of the 10-part weekly event that's happening from Tamaki, which may very well be the end of her detective run, which is cool and neat. It's worth mentioning that 1050 has been treated as a little bit of an anniversary issue, hitting the 50 mark. It's not like massively supersized, but it's a 48-page issue instead of the normal size. So.
Which I'm okay with that, because that is a milestone, and you kind of want that to stick out, the 50s.
It's it's an extra $1 versus the usual price versus it being $8 or $10. So it's a bit easier to swallow. Plus that cover's very pretty. As a lot of these are. The variant's quite nice too. So, very, very neat. Batman Catwoman Special Issue 1. This has been pushed around quite a bit, but this is the one that has the Jean Paul Leon art in it. Obviously not all of it. And this is actually much bigger than I was expecting as well. This is an 80-page one-shot.
I also feel like this is going to act as a tribute to Jean Paul Leon.
I can see that.
So, and that's cool. Like, just make it the $10 book, and
it's a Jean Paul Leon cover, and it wouldn't surprise me if this was half the size originally, but because they've turned it into something of a tribute issue, that it's maybe increased in what it actually is doing.
Yeah, because I know Gerads was talking about that on Twitter this week, about trying to honor that legacy of Jean Paul in this book. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I like seeing them do this type of stuff.
Yeah, nice Lee Weeks variant in there as well. So does mean that last week in January is going to be very busy, but I'll be damned if I'm not reading this. So very, very cool. Very, very cool. Oral art by Tommy Lee Edwards, Bernard Chang, and Mitch Gerads. It says others as well, but those are the ones that are listed. So cool. It also says others listed for writing as well, which makes me think again that it's going to be like Tom King will do the main story, and then there'll be like tribute stories by others. Yeah. So that's cool. Catwoman 39 is coming out, and this is notable because it's the start of the next run. It's Tini Howard who's taking over. Nico Leon on art, and I don't want to count Tini Howard out, but I mean I'll give it a chance, but I'm not feeling optimistic.
I do this every time, so if it ends up being good, it's what's cool about digital comics is you can always find it if you want to go back.
It's got a very nice cover, which is definitely it's the current costume, but it's also very clearly Batman Returns inspired in its aesthetic, I would say. So that's Catwoman 39. Dark Knights of Steel issue 3, that's Tom Taylor's Swords and Sorcery alternate universe book, so that's coming out. Cool enough. We knew about this coming, but this is Justice League versus the Legion of Superheroes issue 1. The question I have though is Matt going to read this, given that this is a Bendis thing through and through?
I mean, it is hinting at the Great Darkness, and being the continuity nerd that I am, I'm probably gonna end up reading this. So we'll see though. But it's got Kotluski too. I like him a lot.
Well, that's a 6-issue mini that Matt is probably going to force himself through. We have a random thing here. We get a Superman and Robin special issue 1, which is Peter J. Tomasi and Victor Bogdanovich teaming up for this. And this is it's actually the Super Sons rather, but it's just that it's now now John Superman, that it's Superman and Robin. So
I like that. I also like that pairing because it throws back to the Dick Grayson, Clark Kent vibe. So
yeah, no, it's I can't deny it's one of these things where some of the attempts to bring Super Sons back has sort of left me a little bit like, this is nice that it exists, but I have not felt as compelled to read all of those. I'm definitely down low to see what this pairing's like now with the change in status quo and where Damien is, where John is now. It should be a fun little check-in, if nothing else. Although it isn't that same day that 80-page Batcat special's out, but we will see. Also on that same day, out of nowhere, is Peacemaker. I was going to say Peacemaker, Disturbing the Peace issue 1. This is a one-shot by Garth Ennis writing and Gary Brown on art. So, if you're interested in some more Peacemaker,
I'm not a fan of Garth Ennis from what I've read. So, seems like a miss for me.
I wonder if this implies that Peacemaker show that we know is coming to HBO Max. I wonder if this implies that it's going to be starting around late January, early February.
Maybe. Because it says ahead of the upcoming show. So, and this comes out the 25th, of January. So maybe?
And like we said, fandom's tomorrow, so they may very well announce the date for that.
I expect something Peacemaker, because James Gunn's been talking it up lately. Also talking about his favorite sequels. Like he's been a very fun Twitter watch or Twitter read the last week or so. So
that's cool. There's a bunch of trades and graphic novels up next. I'll just skip past those. They're all just collections of things that have been
last
out.
week's Nice House. That's the last one for a minute, right?
No, there's one more.
There's one more? Okay.
Yeah, that was issue 5. I'm pretty sure issue 6
that was 5? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was reading it through the solicits and saw that one, and it said, for waiting for issue 7, and I got concerned.
Yeah. Nah,
So,
there's one more.
cool.
And it was
So that's a hell of a cliffhanger if that's the case.
It was a very good issue, no doubt.
Yeah.
Very good issue. Okay, that's still on trades here. Alright, there we go. Action Comics 1039. Not much to say really, other than nice
World
cover.
Saga Part 3?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, very cool. Aquaman The Becoming issue 5, so that's still coming out.
Yeah.
As is Aquaman Green Arrow Deep Target. This is issue 4 of that coming out.
The more I read about this book, the more I don't want to read it. It makes me so sad.
Why? What does it say?
They have to go plot someone's or thwart Scorpio's plot to rewrite time to their own agenda, and I was like, yeah, because I think of Aquaman and Green Arrow as resetting time. Those are the heroes I expect, and and that might be great. I don't know, but each one that comes out of this, I go, oh yeah, Aquaman and Green Arrow, that's a cool team up. Oh wait, they're preserving the time stream. Okay.
Oh well. Here's one I hope I like. I'm a bit skeptical, but Batgirl's issue 2. So that's going. I do really hope I like that. But neat. The main cover's quite nice though. I will say that again. Batman vs Bigsby, A Wolf in Gotham issue 5. So that crossover mini still going. Blue and Gold issue 6. That's still going. That's 6 of 8 for the record. It's an 8 issue mini rather than 6 issues because you thought that was the end. DC versus Vampires issue 4, that's still going. That's 4 of 12, to keep that in mind. I'm looking forward to that because I mean, the team mainly, but it sounds like a wacky good time. Deathstroke Inc. issue 5, that's still continuing along as well. Green Lantern issue 10. Again, all of these are very just like next issues of books. Not much to add, really. I do quite like that second cover on that Green Lantern issue, though. The one with Joe and Kelly.
That's a good one.
Yellow lanterns
with
around.
Sinestro.
Yeah. And then we got Hardware season 1 issue 6, Harley Quinn issue 11, Human Target issue 4, more of the Tom King series.
Yeah, that's a good cover. That is very Saul Bass-esque.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the second cover as well is a lot more pulpy and comic booky as well.
Oh yeah, that's very Silver Agey.
Yeah, very Silver Agey.
With the bonk and all that stuff.
Then we got Justice League 72, which I'm sure Matt will still be punishing himself with.
Yeah, because I was like, I'm done. Oh, there's no Justice League Dark, but look who's on art.
Oh,
Lupacino.
Little bit of Lupacino.
And you see who the story revolves around? It's the Royal Flush Gang.
Matt's going to walk into his comic book shop and say, I will have one Venti Lupacino, please.
Yes. Give me a Trenta. That's one more size up.
You can tell Matt orders coffee more than... Oh, I don't order coffee at all, but he's definitely in coffee shops more than I am because he knows off the top of his head what the sizes are.
Said coffee is vile and I'm a tea guy through and through. Now I feel like every other picture he's posting is him drinking a new latte.
He's a little... Do you know what I think it is? I think it's because he got lactose and he had to venture into other things to be excited about. So he found a new passion.
And that's why coffee's great when you can taste it, which I hadn't for a week. And man, I really missed it. It was that and certain foods.
Counterpoint. Coffee's disgusting when you can taste it.
No. You're drinking bad coffee. But you don't strike me as a person that likes tea that much either. So
no, I mean I can drink tea, but I'm not super into it.
I bet you I can find you. I told this to Connor, and I didn't be true. Bet you I can find you a coffee that you'd like.
You can try. I mean, I don't have a coffee maker, Matt. You
No, I know. I'm just saying. Either to Connor and look at where he's at now. He bought a French press. And... oh boy. Anyways,
yeah, nice try. That's all I do in my life. More caffeine. Justice League Incarnate issue 3. This is the spin out of the what do we call it? The Infinite Frontier.
There you go.
That's the words I was looking for. with more Williamson continuing those adventures, so that's neat. Looney Tunes 264, Man Magazine 24, Nightwing issue 88 with a wonderful cover with Nightwing and Babs embracing. That said, though, the big news with this issue, though, is that there was a lot of buzz this week that Dick is finally getting the stripes going all the way down his arms and into his fingers. Love it.
So someone got a lesson on Twitter on maybe don't talk crap to Tom Taylor unless you're ready to deal with the fallout.
Oh dear.
Yeah, someone basically tried to. What they wanted to say was superfluous, but what they ended up saying was like irrational or something. Not what they had meant to say, and Tom Taylor had to get onto Twitter and be like, "Hey guys, this is just someone stating their opinion. You can lay off of him. Like it's fine. I shared this to have a little joke, just a little funny, and you know. But sometimes I feel like the internet needs that every once in a while. Like if you're gonna put something out there at somebody with a sizable reach, be prepared to deal with the fallout. And this person did very much, and it was good for Taylor to swoop in and be like, guys, play nice. We're all here to have a good time. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's a stylistic thing, right? Like there's no purpose for those on there, but it looks cool as shit. So
I think for me I've always felt ever since they took them away, or even I think the first time I ever saw the blue Nightwing suit without. Well, not including the old versions of the suit, before he became, 96 era Nightwing, was maybe like the animated series where it was just the logo, and it didn't even go to his shoulders, and it just kind of looked really weird and just far too plain.
It was like a t-shirt version of it.
Yeah, whereas I feel like the stripes going down so that his middle two fingers are also got the blue. It just makes it feel like a more of a complete design, I think.
Yeah,
but
no, it does. Well, and to me, it goes into his circus past too, because it feels more like an acrobatic costume. Because you're drawing attention to the hands,
for
away
sure,
from the feet and whatnot. So logically it made sense. That's what he said. It was illogical.
There you go.
So people,
I kind of dig as well at the inside of the glove. The grip is blue as well. It's a bit of separation, just a little bit of So yeah, I'm all for the full Nightwing stripes. So, then we got Newbie in the Amazons issue 4. That's still going. Stephanie Phelps and Vita Elea. One Star Squadron. That's the Mark Russell book, which I forgot existed. Every time there's a weird miniseries like this and it's not started yet, I always forget about it when we get to issue 2 and 3 in the Solicits because it's not out yet.
Right.
Robin issue 10 with Joshua Williamson. Williamson's name's on a lot of books, the Solicits. So that's still going. Very interesting cover, that one as well. Very nice. Robin's issue 3, this is the Tim Seeley miniseries. And what's interesting about this is less about this issue, but they revealed that there's like sexy variants for each issue, and they showed like 4 of them. And what was funny to me is that Steph ended up in the one who was the most like clothed, yeah. Like all the other ones, I guess because they're guys, they can get away with more. But like Dick's just sitting in his boxer shorts, and that's it.
Yeah, it is a hilarious commentary on what comic pinups used to be, right? And now they're these like basically beefcake posters, and it cracks me up because it makes a segment of the comic reading population very uncomfortable, and they complain about it. And it kind of cracks me up. So
it's amusing. It's amusing. Suicide Squad issue 11, that's still trucking on, as is Suicide Squad King Shark with issue 5, Superman 78 issue 6, Superman Son of Kal-El issue 7, which I suppose actually just to some big news this week that can slot in here with the discussion of this book, which is John is bisexual, and that was revealed this week. Taylor revealed it on Coming Out Day. I don't know if it's National Coming Out Day or Worldwide Coming Out Day, but either way, cool. Honestly, like now that they've said it, and I think back to what we've had of him and this other character in the book, I'm like, yeah, I can kind of see it going there now.
Yeah, anybody that's surprised by this hasn't been reading the book, and then that's what that tells me. A lot of people that aren't reading comics right now, wanting to have an opinion about something,
and
they're completely ignorant.
Dean Cain.
Yeah, God. Well, I said this on Twitter, and a lot of people nobody watched that show for him. All right.
No.
We were all there for Terry Hatcher, right? At least I was.
And
he's been
and Lane Smith. That's not count out Lane Smith.
Lane Smith. Yeah. Yeah, he's got a big diarrhea of the mouth, and he did respond to Tom Taylor, where Tom Taylor's like, "Hey, man, I hope you read the book because you're making a lot of judgments based off of something that's not out yet." And Dean Cain actually said, "I look forward to it. I look forward to reading it." So it's one of those ones where I want to not like him for his opinion, but he does follow through and reads and actually, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm not convinced he's going to. I don't know when.
I don't either. I want to believe in good faith, but I don't think it's going to happen. But
when was the last time you think Dean Cain read a comic book?
I don't think he ever has.
My point. I mean, maybe he does. So, maybe he's been loyally reading Superman comics his entire life, or at least since he was on that show. Maybe he's felt attached to it and he's kept up with it. Maybe he has, and I'm judging, but.
Judging from some of his beliefs, he seems the type that paid for Cyberfrog and never got it.
So, very, very neat. I did see a funny tweet that said that John should hook up with Tim now that they're both bisexual, and Connor Kent can just weep in a corner somewhere.
It's my little brother, my best friend.
As the forgotten Superboy. Who isn't loved anymore.
Yeah, I still love him. Connor. Not you, Connor.
Connor Kent. Yeah, not Connor on the show.
No, real Connor. We'll call Connor Kent the real Connor. I still love him. He's not anything. Well, I mean, kind of in Suicide Squad, kind of not, from what I understand. So
kinda.
Who the hell knows? Who the hell knows?
So then, Task Force Z issue 4. Well, I'm fairly looking forward to that at this point. Teen Titans Academy issue 11. The Flash 778. Wonder Girl issue 8. What's shocking to me about Wonder Girl issue 8 is that we've only had 3 issues of that so far. So somehow we're getting 5 issues in the next 3 months, and they were delayed, not because of the creative team. They were delayed because of distribution issues. So it's entirely possible that this will all happen.
Yeah, and cool. Like, and it seems like Joel Jones is on all of them still.
Yeah. And that main cover, or actually that's the variant. It's the variant cover is very
with
pretty.
All the different girls.
No, I'm not the one with the horse.
Yeah.
It's very, very pretty. Yeah. Not the other one's bad by any means. It's just that the other one's very stark. I don't know which one you meant. Yeah. It's because it defaulted to the variant, so I just immediately called it the main cover, but it's not. Wonder Woman 783 is out in January, as is Wonder Woman Evolution issue 3. This is Stephanie Phillips. I don't remember this book existing, but it's obviously not started yet.
No, I think this is the one that's collects the digital first.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think so. I'm not sure.
I'll take your word for it.
Say anything. Yeah.
So then there's some trades, doing the usual thing. Notably, there's an omnibus for Brubaker's Catwoman called Catwoman of East End, so that's neat. There's a big soft cover for Generations. I know Matt was in love with that pair of one-shots.
Yep, so much I didn't read the second one.
Yeah. Nor me. No, did I read it? Maybe I can't remember if I read it now. Maybe that's all you need to know, is that I can't remember if I read the second one. So very neat. More of the classic post-crisis Supermans collected in big juicy hardcovers, if you're into that sort of thing. And that's all cool. And then as you go further down, there's actually more solicits for stuff, because for the most part, almost everything we brought up there was in the second half of January. So when you get past this point, there's a lot of stuff from the first half of January. And I think I'm pretty confident in saying that we talked about all of these solicits previously in last month's solicits. So I think we'll call it here. And I know that for sure because I recognize the cover that we talked about from Detective Comics last time. So so the rest of this is all just a redo of solicits we've already had. So there you go. Cool. So refer to the last solicits discussion for the rest of these, but that is January's solicits. I mean, it looks nice and healthy. Maybe a bit skewed towards Batman as per usual, but other than that, not much.
But hey, as the arguments being made on Twitter, DC has other books, guys. If you're that upset by so much Batman, then go read something that's not Batman and spread the word if you like it. You know, like there's no point in just complaining. Like, yes, I kind of lean into a character here, but you'll also hear me talking about how great Catwoman and Night, those are still Bat books, but point stands. But joking aside, you know, Superman and Action and what other books do I love? You know, a lot of the Tom King 12-issue maxis. You know, there's other stuff other than Batman. So yes, I guess complain. I can't control what you do on social media, but like there's also other options. DC doesn't only print Batman comics. It might seem like that in the Solicits sometimes, but there's other stuff on the shelf.
Yes, Matt recommends Harley Quinn. So
no, I do not. Maybe if it was Stephanie Phillips, but not Riley Rosmo. Can't get behind the Rosmo art. Connor will though. I love Rosmo.
Oh yeah, Connor loves Riley Rosmo. Riley Rosmo and what do you call him? From
say his name.
From Rob Liefeld. That's the one I'm trying to say.
Or are you trying to think of the other one?
No, Rob Liefeld. I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I like Rob Liefeld.
Gotcha. Oh, the art, yeah, especially his feet.
Yeah, especially his feet. Like so, you know, some people, you know, like Tarantino just have a foot fetish. Connor has a Rob Liefeld foot fetish.
And a pocket fetish.
Has lots of pockets. So that is the Solicits. So we can get into the books for the week. Strange Adventures issue 12. Tom King writing with Mitch Gerads and Doc Shaner on the art. This is the culmination. And I think what's so different to compare it to Rorschach, which we both talked about the final issue of that just a couple of weeks ago, is that this has a very different structure at the end to that, in that the last issue of Rorschach was very much the culmination of that book. Yep. Whereas with this one, I think issue 11 was the emotional culmination, and then issue 12 is, I would say, an epilogue, but more of the fallout of what the real culmination was. I
believe in film school they taught us this was the denouement. Like, this is the, as you just said, the fallout. It's the climax has happened, and this is what happens post that big moment. And yeah, so did I like this? Did I not like it?
Of course you liked it. Why wouldn't you like it?
Yeah, why wouldn't I like it? It's the first thing I read this week. I couldn't go into the shop, so I didn't have to wait to get up my physical copy. So I read the digital, and yeah, I mean, it's a Tom King 12-issue maxi. What else is there? He sticks the landing and does it in such a way that when you get to the last page, just the whole commentary that we had been talking about the whole time, right? You know, about this, the Shaner version versus the Gerads version, and just for King to come out and put that out there, I think, you know, other people I've seen call it, you know, a little bit too clever, but I think it fit perfectly for what he was doing in the story.
I mean, yeah, ultimately it kind of takes this idea that the book's been doing for 12 issues and has Alana actually say it and, you know, talk about how everything that we go through, we kind of turn into stories in our heads to sort of compartmentalize them, and also try and like just process them and be able to actually, you know, lie to ourselves, to make sense of them, to just live with them. And the idea that this entire story's had this one big fictitious version, even if it is mostly based on truth, but there are, you know, little things here or there. There's the omissions, there's skewing of things to make it work, so that you can live with yourself. And that's kind of, you know, what this Doc Shaner version that we've had throughout the whole book's been. So to have Alana kind of say that and use it in a way that, you know, she's not like completely hateful of Adam in this final issue, even though she had to kill him in the last one. Right. There is kind of a more nuanced approach from her in terms of how she thinks of her dead husband, and still is kind of mad at Terrific in some ways for, like,
right. Well, because it's him pulling on this thread, right, is what ended up her husband dying, but it also ended up with her realizing the cost of war via her husband.
Well, yeah,
you know?
that's the thing. It's like she's kind of mad that he pulled on the thread, but like him pulling on the thread does not change the fact that Adam lied to you and used your daughter as
Right.
collateral. Like you should still be mad at Adam for that. That's
Right,
still
exactly.
that's still
It's not only, it's the shoot the messenger type thing. And it fits very in with her character, which, I thought she was kind of sinister the whole time. And I feel, just the femme fatale version of her that we get in Gerads' art. But come to find out, she's still, yeah, she's a princess on this planet and she has these duties. But, at the end of the day, she's still kind of, for all the war she's been through, she's still kind of a pure soul, right? Unlike Adam. Like, she didn't have to. Adam gave over his soul so she didn't have to. And that's the vibe that I got. And that's why she looks at him, like, yeah, she's upset and she had to kill him. But she understands why, ultimately. And, I guess it's her version of justice there at the end.
I mean, I think the point is, though, is it's more complex than just there's good and bad and all those things. It's a lot more nuanced than that. And I think it's hard to just boil down into a simple sentence how she feels about Adam by the end and how she feels about him, after his death. But the story is her and Terrific going to the Pict to get her daughter back, and her being kind of badass and shooting the Pict in the head when he doesn't give her over right away, which leads to a big action sequence that we don't even really see most of. It just kind of starts and we go back into more sort of happy times, and it's basically the final adventures on Ran before Adam would say, "Hey, I think we're done here. Why don't we go to Earth?" And it's him presenting it in a way it's like it's a fresh start. Oh, this planet reminds us of our daughter. In reality, we know it's because he's made this deal.
He made a trade.
Yeah. So
he made the trade and whatnot. And I love the moment with Mr. Terrific where he said, that this happened a lot faster than I had calculated. When she shoots the pick. So just that the fact that he can even be off his game when Alana's involved, I did kind of like that.
Yeah, and there's kind of the art I think is maybe at some of its best when we do actually just we cut to their daughter. We cut to Aaliyah, and she's wearing Terrific's jacket, like he's put his jacket around her.
Yep.
And we don't see that happening. We just cut to her and she's wearing it around her shoulders. And Alana's trying to explain, and her daughter asks for a hug, and it's all very kind of awkward. And and it's. I think that's neatly plays into what she goes on to say later to Terrific, because when she sort of describes who Terrific is when she asks, she says, "Oh, he's this friend, he's a hero who was able to help find you," and and her daughter goes, "Oh, he really is terrific there," and Terrific kind of smiles, and she goes over and asks Terrific for a hug. But that's not how Alana feels about Terrific, and she makes that very clear later on. But again, this is her turning it into a story that her daughter can understand and process and live with. So it's kind of a sweet moment, even though there's there's a lie in the sense that Alana doesn't believe this, even though to us we're kind of like, well, this is pretty accurate as far as we're concerned.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but it adds back into that theme of the lies we tell ourselves to kind of make things work and keep going.
Yeah.
So, and some gorgeous art, when they make the choice to move to Earth and they have that full-page kiss and all that, and the trainer art. And Alana, at the end of the story, decides that she is not going to be staying on Earth, but she's also not going to be living on Ran full time, because her daughter will not be safe on Ran, because because now that they've lost the war with Earth, they're going to attack Ran for revenge, because the deal fell through. She has to be there to help fight that. But her daughter will not be safe there, so she's going to be on Earth, and Terrific's going to have to look after her. And he's like, "Wait, what?" And
I can't take a kid. Are you kidding me? I don't understand children.
And this is where she makes her big speeches that we've been kind of alluding to. But she does point out, I really like the touch that Earth's the one place that beat the Pict, so it's actually the safest place from the Pict now.
Right, and it's like the fact that Ran had this well, it feels generational at this point, war with them. But, on Earth, all those superheroes, and you have Mr. Terrific, and you have Batman, and all these other heroes that play a factor. It's not just Adam. It's a world full of people like Adam. So I do like that it's, real good. But, as she explains to him, too, is like, this is kind of all your fault. So therefore, and I wouldn't want her to be with anybody else.
Yeah,
than
but
you.
he sees this for what it is. He sees that she's spinning this, so she's doing her, her almost politician thing of spinning it into the story, and that's when she kind of says, they're all stories. That's how we learn to live with things. But she actually gets, properly emotional as she's describing this, and describing how Terrific's been able to move on from his wife's death and his family's death. And she's kind of, she's got tears running down her face as she's saying, that's your story and you tell it beautifully. Do you know how my husband died? You never asked. And, he says, oh, he killed himself. And she's like, no. And we actually, cut back to a full page of him holding her, her holding Adam's dead body and just the blood all over the floor. And it's just this horrific, full page spread. And it's like, no, this is the reality. This is the truth of what happened. And the end of the story is we go back to the past. Well, it's not quite the end yet, but we go back to the past, and it's Alana finishing up the first draft of the book that obviously he was shilling way back at the start of the story.
Yeah, so she ghost wrote it. Yeah,
and the final scene is where we started. It's him sitting down for the book signing. I am glossing over a terrific scene, though. There's a really nice touch here where Alea is now the one asking the questions for Terrific, the trivia.
As he's lifting weights, which is where we first saw him at the beginning, And I think it's the same person. I think it's still about W.E.B. Du Bois. So that was real good. But this whole thing, to go back to the Terrific and the Alana saying that he needs her because his story is that one of how he overcame grief. And she's intimating it's kind of a lie. Like, he still grieves. He's not over it. And this, him having to be this guardian now for this girl is what he needs to properly move on, And so I do like that balance here,
Yeah, no, it's a really nice final scene with Terrific, actually. It's like I wasn't really sure what the narrative end point for Terrific was going to be in this book, given that the story's not really been about him too much, but he has had actually this nice little arc sort of buried within everything else. But the sad part of the ending of this, where it just ends with the Shaner art version of him saying, "My name's Adam, can I sign a book for you?" Is just, it's kind of heartbreaking, because it's like, ultimately, this is where it's going to become the reality for us, because that's where we started, and it's just like it all went downhill from here.
But it's like, remember that version is still all glossy, right? So, like, what is the story going to become? That's how I took it.
Oh, sure, right? Yeah. Obviously, yes. That now it's in Shaner art versus when we first saw him doing this. It was in Gerads art, way back in issue 1. But it's very impressive that they were able to do this, and for me to remember how that issue 1 started and get the connection, because there's a lot of books where if you try to reference something that happened 12 issues ago, this specifically, that I might not quite get it.
Well, and with the delays that the pandemic caused with this book too, for us to go back even further, not just the 12 issues, but in time, it's really skillful storytelling on all parts here.
Yeah, and I really just, obviously this is the last hurrah we get to talk about this particular combination of talent on this. So I think all the stuff on the ships with Alana and Terrific, and all the, for lack of a better word, lens flares and that kind of stuff, and the sort of the depth of field effect that's going on. I love how overwhelming all of it kind of feels, because the whole idea is they're in the real world, so it's overwhelming, right? Whereas you get to the flashbacks, you get to the the Doc Shaner ideal version of the past, and everything's very clean, everything's very easy to comprehend and swallow, everything. I mean, nice, there's
a bold sand monster, right? That is clear as day, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like, you see the form of it. It's very cartoony, and it contrasts with that overwhelmingness in the other half of the book.
It's like, even in the that final scene with Terrific and Alea, like, it's still the Gerads art, and it's still overpoweringly bright, but it is a bright future. It does feel, it's yellow and warm, and it's welcoming. So even though it's still got that kind of harsh real world, like we have to sort of like live in this world kind of feel to it. It is a lot more uplifting looking than a lot of the other Gerads art that has been in the book. So there is still kind of a hopeful tone, like going forward. Like, yeah, this is maybe what Terrific needs. This is maybe what Alea needs, and they'll both be better for this pairing that they've kind of had thrown on them. It's kind of nice. I think I don't know if we've made that specific like analysis on the difference between their art before, but it really kind of just I felt it as I was going through this. Maybe it's just because all the stuff on the ships and them and picked, and they were really like amping up the effects more in this one, perhaps, because it is the finale, because it is so this emotional climax. But I was really feeling the difference in this one, in that particular way. But
yeah,
no. Wonderful. It's wonderful.
No, I have nothing more to add outside. I can't believe how well they stuck the landing. Like I said that with Rorschach, right? But that was a murder mystery that was very fulfilling. That they always aren't. But with this, the way that they weave the two stories together and how the past from the first issue, that was reality, or the present that was a reality is now the past, and now it's being told in this idealized way. I was like, oh man, goddamn.
Yeah. Even everything we saw in this is going to become a story in some way.
Right.
Honestly, like if you ask me right now, like I think the three big King books at this point. I mean, no, I've not read some of the stuff from beforehand, but going from Mr. Miracle onwards, Mr. Miracle, this, and Rorschach. You ask me what one I think is the best. I honestly, I would have to really think hardly about how I rank those books, because they're all exceptional in their own way.
They're so different, right? Yeah, the vibe on each of them is different.
And they all
I'm very partial to Rorschach still, though, just because that's more my type of vibe. But I would have a hard time ordering them. Like, I just thought about it when you were saying it, and I don't know what I could put at number one.
And they all have something to say, but they all have something different to say. So it's a very impressive. Like, his list of work at this point is really starting to look very impressive when you consider all these like 12-issue hardcovers or whatever you can recommend to people and say, no, this is just a great work on its own. You don't have to. I mean, maybe some basic DC knowledge of some of the stuff from beforehand is useful, because they are fairly. Yeah, they're fairly. It's not Batman and Superman we're dealing with here. We're dealing with Adam Strange, and we're dealing with Mr. Miracle and whatnot. But they're also pretty standalone. So as long as you have a basic understanding, maybe Rorschach's the easiest one, because it's easy to say, hey, read Watchmen, because you should, but then read this too as your follow up. So it's hard not to just be kind of gobsmacked by just how high the quality is here. So yes, is it the emotional high point that issue 9 is, or not issue 9? Sorry, issue 11. No, but does it feel like it puts a nice bow on a really strong creative point that it's trying to make, and feels like it leaves you wanting more work by Tom King, Gerads, and Doc Shaner? Yes, it does. It very much does. So yeah, what you giving it, Matt?
I'm gonna give this a 9.5. Like, it's almost perfect. But yeah,
I think I'll probably just give this issue on its own a 9. But if you're asking me, and we don't do this for other books because they're ongoings or whatever, but if you're asking me, what do I give this 12 issues run, this book, if you're handing someone the trade or the hardcover or whatever, like, it's a 10. Like, this is a 10 out of 10 12-issue story.
Yeah, it's that good.
That's how I feel about it. And maybe that's something we should do at the end of like arcs, where there's a clear. I mean, not for every little thing, but when there's a clear, like at the end of Fear State, we can say, okay, how do we rate this bat story / event kind of thing? Yeah. Maybe that's something we should do. But I think 10 out of 10. And for the record, Mr. Miracle and Rorschach are both also pretty much 10.
Yeah, right?
Which is why they're hard to rank.
Yeah.
They're very hard to rank.
Yeah, again, so far the only thing I really haven't liked from King that I read was Omega Man, and I just couldn't, and it wasn't for quality, it's just I didn't connect with the story like I do with these, so... Yeah,
not counting these mainline DC stuff, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. I'm talking these 12-issue maxi, and I still haven't read Vision, which I need to, but yeah.
And then you've got like Supergirl and Batman, Catwoman, which are a bit lower down the totem pole, but they're still obviously really well done and solid. So, but yeah, okay, well, there you go. That's Strange Adventures issue 12. Another biggie comes to a close. We shall move on to a new beginning. Batman, the Imposter, issue 1. Mattson, Tomlin, and Andrea Sorrentino on the art. This is a new Black Label book. It is obviously not in continuity. It's just a separate Batman universe, and this is an oversized book. It's a good 50 pages or something like that. This is book 1 of I think 3.
Yeah, it seems like it because they had a trade listing in the solicits.
Yeah, so, 3. 4 at a push.
Oh, this is why.
What?
I looked up the writer, and I was like, what else has he worked on? And apparently he's a screenwriter. You want to guess what he wrote?
Is that a movie or a TV show?
It's a movie that's coming out that you're very excited for.
That I'm excited for?
Yeah.
Is it the Batman?
It is. And I was like, that's why I felt that was going to be my main takeaway from this. I go, this is odd that this is going to exist in the same place as the Batman, the Matt Reeves, and then it's like, oh, because it's from one of the same creators.
It does feel a little bit like the same sort of steampunky, more grounded vibe that movie seems to be going for.
The vibe, I'm not going to talk about the actual book, just the vibe. I am a sucker for this kind of Batman. We're playing with the world of Gotham, and we're getting little bits and pieces of it, and it's kind of taking what we know and turning it just a little bit. So yeah.
Honestly, the only critique I really have of the writing is not really a critique at all. It was something that I thought was confusing, but then wasn't when I realized who was in the first couple of pages. So there's a woman in the first couple of pages where Batman kind of lands on her fire escape bleeding, and the narration. But at first, okay, this is clearly her, and she's surprised that Batman's lying there. And then it sort of shifted to the next page where it sounded like Alfred was narrating all of a sudden, and I was confused. And the reason why I was confused is because when you get to the next page, it turns out this is Leslie Tompkins, and all of a sudden the narration makes sense. Because I thought the whole point of this story at the start was this is a stranger who Batman's just happened to land in their fire escape.
Well, it's because we're not used to Leslie Thompson being a person of color. Or Tompkins.
Tompkins, yeah. Which is totally fine, but there was nothing to tell me until like page 3 or 4 that this is who that was. So I just didn't get it. I thought the narration had switched to a different character, but once I realized that's who it was, I was like, oh, this all makes sense. This is fine. So I thought this was excellent.
Is she in the movie?
Let me just get this out of the way. I thought this was excellent.
Yeah, so I text Pete earlier today and be like, hey, I'm kind of crunched on time. What are you reading so I know what to read? And he suggested I read this one because it's Sorrentino, and it's a little bit shorter than it was this or Urban Legends. I am glad I did not skip this. Like, this is something I would have got to maybe next week. I am so glad that I picked this up.
Yeah, and to be clear, I don't think there's any implication that this has anything to do with the movie. I think this is completely separate. This is not in the same world or anything.
No, I don't think it does either. But I'm looking to see if Tompkins is in the movie and who the actress is that playing her. I don't see. I'm trying not to spoil anything from the movie from what we know.
I don't remember them announcing any Leslie Tompkins.
I don't think so. I'm looking mayoral candidate. If there is, they're not listed in this article. So, but yeah, no, this is very good, and it doesn't hurt that Sorrentino is a master of pacing, because this was 50 pages, 49 pages.
It went in quick. It did not feel.
It moves.
Yeah.
No, and part of me feels like that. Sorrentino is fantastic, but he's really good at adapting writers, in his art. So in this guy that wrote it, Mattson Tomlin, is traditionally a screenwriter. So I'm assuming he's just writing this like he's writing a film script, and just letting Sorrentino go. And I feel like this works to both of their strengths.
Yeah, I mean, the story has obviously we'll go through it here. There's a few different setup beats that are very important, but it does feel like an early days Batman story. We find out later on it's I think year 3 of Batman, but it's a very early days Batman. We do hear references to Gordon and some other characters who are not around at the minute, but they do exist in this world. And the crux of the start of this is that she patches him up, and Leslie Tompkins basically gives Bruce this ultimatum where if he doesn't come and sit down for therapy with her every night after he's out doing his Batman stuff, she'll call the police and tell them that Bruce Wayne's Batman and turn them in, because she's not convinced that this is healthy, that what he's doing isn't completely psychotic, and all these other things.
I love how she broke it down as a psychiatrist, that his origin and what impacts that would have on a regular person. And then she's like, and that's not even what stood out to me the most. It was his rage. And I was like, oh man, this is a new take on the, on their relationship even.
I mean, what I liked about it was just how simple the premise is. Like, this is about her concern for him in the early days, thinking that he's got a bit of a madman running around doing what he's doing, and says, no, if you want me to sort of keep doing this and sort of uphold my end of this, then you're going to do this for your own health. And it felt, it felt like, I don't know, like, almost like something out of Mr. Robot, because Elliot in Mr. Robot goes to therapy. And I don't want to get into his conditions because that'll spoil some of the show, but there was definitely almost like some of that vibe going on a little bit, with like, this is a character that we're behind as an audience, who we're kind of rooting for, even though his mental state is a little bit questionable perhaps. But the process of trying to analyze him and like having someone dig into his head is potentially quite fascinating. So it's really good. But there's a whole sequence here where he explains what happened that night, and it's him getting after some guys who were robbing a store, and he gets hit. But there's some wonderful art here from Sorrentino. Like the store owner gets shot in the shoulder. It does that Sorrentino thing with the sort of the box,
the red
zoom ins where like the coloring changes, and it shows you sort of the focus points, if you will, of the moment. But the sequential stuff here is great. It ends up bleeding into a car chase where Batman's on a motorbike chasing after them in a car. All wonderful stuff. It flows so well. There's the coloring changes when they get outside. It's all red, like the harsh red light of the city. All beautiful stuff. All very stylized. All very deep, inky, dark blacks. Just gorgeous stuff to look at. There's a mood, there's a tone to everything in this, and then that's when, after hearing this, is where Tompkins gives him the ultimatum, as it were. So
I'm looking at this art again as we're talking about it.
Yes,
it's very Sorrentino, but I'm starting to look at Bruce and I'm starting to see Robbie Pats, and then there's a specific panel at the end that's very much the Robbie Pats version that we've seen in the teasers with the dark eyes, And I was like, that's weird. That's like the new movie coming out. This is very similar to that. And then now that I found out it's the same screenwriter, I was like, oh, man. Now I'm looking at Sorrentino's Bruce, and I was like, that's Robbie Pats-esque.
I mean...
Good on him. But good on them for making it still Bruce Wayne enough that I didn't automatically think,
oh, sure,
that's just Robbie Pats.
The next page after this scene, though, is a full-page spread of Batman looking out at the city. If I was even on a new scene, it's when he's talking to her about how Gotham had its first night with no violent crime in 54 years, and it's just this page of him looking out at and it's very different because all that car chase stuff was all red. This is more of a blue, and it's just the calm city that like he's kind of achieved by doing what he's been doing.
And there's some light in the middle that almost give the city eyes, almost as if the city's looking back at him. And then that bottom panel is Bruce crying, right?
Yeah, it's him. It's him shedding a tear as Batman. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, man, that's what really, that moment right there is where I was like, oh man, okay, I'm liking this.
Yeah, it's something fresh, it's something different. But there's a lot more to set up here, so we get introduced to a lot of interesting ideas. So, Detective Wong, she's our other main character of this book, and she's investigating. Well, she's investigating who Batman is, but she's also investigating kind of, this book kind of brings up some ideas that maybe other books I've not seen explore with Batman. One, for example, being that people are finding random zip lines that have been abandoned, like attached to the rooftops.
And that I like the conversation that you see with the with the construction guys being like, yeah, it was just a dude. We assumed he was just a day worker. And it's hinted that was Bruce going up there setting those up.
Yeah, with these disguises, of course, is a classic Batman trope. Yeah, so she goes up to this Wesker building, this rich guy Wesker, who is like being concerned that the Batman's doing up to no good. He thinks the zip lines belong to him. There's some wonderful stuff in the art here. Obviously, he thinks he's a big shot. He thinks he deserves to be privy to police information. And Detective Wong's like, no, like you're still a citizen. You might, contribute a lot of money to the city, to the police department, but you don't get to be privy to things like, we if we're going to catch Batman and put him away for what he does, then it's going to have to hold up, and that doesn't hold up if I've let information out to the public, which you still account as. But what I loved in the art of these pages, there's a few variations on it, but the first one especially is like the panels play out in these almost very cinematic close-ups of like these wide rectangles, but the background of the page is this harsh black and white angel statue, and it's this really overly imposing thing the entire time, and it really gives you this impression of his power and how imposing he's being. And she's holding her own, like sort of like talking him off, but everything here is about showing like, because you get the impression that this statue we're seeing is probably a statue that's on the outside of the building or something like that. It's something that he's built as part of the empire that he's built, so he feels like he's the big shot. So you really get this vibe in that, and like the dynamics between the characters in this are so well done. In terms of just like quickly setting up who they are, how they feel about each other. You really get into their heads, and then it introduces the guy's son, who seems to have an imaginary friend. He might be completely psychotic.
Well, you know who that is, right?
Remind me, because it didn't trigger for me when I was reading that.
Oh, Pete. Okay, this is also where I was like, oh, they're twisting things.
No. Give me a chance to guess before you tell me.
Okay.
Wesker. Wait, is this Scarface? Is this?
So he goes,
ventriloquist,
I don't like it. If we don't, and he goes, shh. And he's already, he's got the balding look going. He's got the glasses, but there's no other indication that this is.
I'm annoyed that didn't click for me.
And then the name.
I'm annoyed that didn't click for me when I read it now. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Okay. And then he goes, Arnold, don't shush me. And she goes, sorry? He goes, no, I'm sorry. That's our stop. I guess that's the son no one ever sees. And it's like, oh, man.
Does he usually
introduced us?
Does he usually have a super rich parent? No, I don't think so.
No, so that's what I'm trying to look up right now. And this DC Wiki I'm on is making it very difficult. I don't think so, because in the most fleshed out version is from the animated series that we've gotten. Because relatively, the ventriloquist is a newer character. He wasn't created until 1988.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you know what bugs me about that?
Little twist here.
Do you know what bugs me about this? Is that when I first saw the building and it said Wesker, I'm like, okay, does that name mean anything? Is there any characters named Wesker? And I couldn't think of any, so I just assumed it was a new character.
We don't think of him as Arnold Wesker. We think of him as the ventriloquist in Scarface. Because Scarface is the bigger character.
I couldn't remember his name though. That was the problem. I couldn't remember his name.
Yeah. So once she said Arnold, it clicked, and then as he's talking to himself, and then I looked at him, I was like, that's ventriloquist. So we're getting a little bit of, Gotham being presented here, and I love that, man. I love the mythos in Gotham.
Well, yeah, I mean, the next few pages are her just narrating over, panels of the city, talking about how, we all look at the effects that Batman's had on crime, had on certain, criminal groups, but what about the economic consequences? That's what this conversation with Wesker's kind of made her think about, is like, what if someone's bankrolling him, because he clearly has some sort of money income, some money to spend. Like, what if this is all, like, are the same companies being targeted? Is there one rich company that's not being targeted? But she does actually point out that the Wayne, or maybe it was Wesker before, but it was pointed out that a Wayne building did get blown up at some point recently, so.
Do we know when the movie's supposed to be taking place?
It's early.
It's early. So are we going to see that? Are we going to see Bruce blow up his own building? Like, is this what a little bit of foreshadowing into what to expect? The movie was supposed to be out by now, right?
Originally, sure, yeah, but this comic, like, I doubt this comic was planned that far in advance.
I don't know. I do feel like
I think you're reaching here, Matt. I don't think this has anything to do with the movie.
I think it takes place in that general because it is a black label, so it can kind of play with that. I do think this is set in that Gotham. I really do, and this might not be canon for the term, but it's taking place in that time, and
I don't think it is. I don't really care if it is either. Like, I don't want the movie to be beholden to this. I don't want this to. This is working on its own.
That's what I'm saying. I still think it can be in Black Label, but there's a lot of similarities here at play that it's hard to ignore now that I know he's the screenwriter of the film. That's all.
Okay.
But
so
I also like this introduction. Are we gonna get there to the police crew?
Oh yeah.
She's gonna be with?
So she goes into the precinct and it does that thing where all the panels actually make a police badge. And it's a bunch of people being brought in to help hunt down Batman, and we're showing, I mean, first of all, we get like her, we get the close-up panels of all their heads where she kind of like labels who she knows, but she doesn't know all of them, so some of them are just, don't know this guy. Like, where's one of them? Which I thought was a nice touch. But basically, this is where the concept of the title of the book kind of comes into play, which is that they get footage of what looks like Batman murdering three criminals on the top of a roof by kicking them off. And it's super dark, super sinister. And I love that we get the full close-up, pixelated, security camera Batman face. Really nice touch. So this sets up, okay, we have to stop him now. He's killing people. He's finally crossed that line. We have to do this. And one of them cracks a joke like, hey, these three guys, and I love this bit in the writing, that he calls them the three perps, and he's like, what do you mean perps? He's like, oh, I mean victims, because technically they are victims in this case.
Right, and it's he says because of DA Dent's or District Attorney Dent's genius and not at all misguided crusade against the corruption of the court, cleared them and gave them all get out of jail free cards. So, like, of course the cops are upset that the DA accidentally got these guys off.
Oh, of course, but I think that's a separate point, though. What I'm meaning is that because of who Batman typically targets, he still referred to them as perps before he thought of them as victims. And I think that was a really interesting correction I thought that the guy had to point out. But you're right, yeah, they mentioned that these guys were only on the street because Dent they helped uncover corruption, which is very classic, early days Batman stuff. Yep. But it did lead some people getting out of prison that just did deserve to be there, even though their cases were, meddled with.
Also, that line, they've been on the street since Halloween doing God knows what. And I was just like, oh my God, he's making reference to the Long Halloween in a metaphor, with Dent and his stuff. Like, oh man.
I don't know if I think that's a reference to Long Halloween, but
why else bring up Halloween though, Pete?
Because it's the horror season, and this came out in October.
I just feel like he's having fun. Like, he's not saying, Yeah, I just think he's having fun.
I think
Halloween.
Matt's got the murder board out. He's got the red strings. He's reaching for connections. That's all I'm saying.
I do like Charlie Day.
Yeah, it is. So, and then what I liked about this next part is that it's a 2-page layout where it shows you Detective looking at like basically discussing the case and how to track down Batman, if he's doing these things. And there's a big bat in the middle of the panel, or the middle of the page. But then the other side of this 2-page layout is Batman, who's thinking about this imposter and how possibly he can find this imposter and stuff like that. Oh wait, no. So I'm thinking of a later page. No. Yes. Sorry. That's a later page.
I got confused. I'm looking no, Batman's not there.
Yeah, that's a later page. But that is a very good page where they're both thinking about their case at the same time. This is the page that started bringing up more things that I've not seen brought up before, like the police finding 12 of however many hundreds of bikes that Batman stashed throughout the city, so he can always has like a getaway vehicle stashed nearby. They found like 12 bikes, but none of them are reported stolen. So again, it's kind of hinting that whoever this is, he's got a lot of money, because there's like $1 million worth of motorbikes so far found throughout Gotham City, just waiting to be used. It's an interesting detail. I like kind of this grounded approach to thinking about it. So this was more of her thought process, and then it shows you Tompkins almost phoning the police because it's dawn. She's waited all night for Bruce, but he shows up at the last minute. And I think what's neat about this is that, and I'm glad that I was skipping ahead before, because I kind of love that this is the next time we see him, is that he's back at Leslie Tompkins, because this is like him finally reacting to this imposter. Like, because she holds up a newspaper that says Batman kills and says, "Is it true?" And he's like, "I thought you knew me." And
you know my profile.
Yeah, and then starts talking about, how he's going to track down whoever's doing this. This person's basically getting to hide in plain sight because Batman's going to be blamed for everything. And I think it's later on that he says that if he gets caught, then all of a sudden this guy's scapegoat is gone because now he can't pretend to be Batman anymore, or reveal that there is two, and therefore basically, redeem the real Batman in the eyes of the public. So
he's been asking around, which is such a great.
Oh yeah, there's probably the most colourful page in the whole book is that page where it says bloody fist, and there's like 3 panels, but one's green, one's red, and one's blue.
Yeah.
One's Cobblepause in the blue panel, for example. Really just wonderful looking stuff. I really like the focus on the close-ups and all these conversations, and the very moody, a lot of shadows, all that stuff. But Tompkins points out that if they think you're a murderer, you're going to be feared by the public, and you're going to also be held. All this leniency you've had from the police up until now is going to be gone. And we hear from the other cops as well that a lot of them don't approve of it. Gordon, Captain James Gordon, at some point in the history of this Batman, has helped Batman and has had a signal on the roof, and they're not cool with that. Interesting stuff. This is one of these things where you almost immediately. The nicest thing I can say about a new Bat book like this, when it's doing okay, this is their specific focus on whatever story they're doing, is that immediately I'm like, I kind of want to see this world's version of all of the big things now. I want to see what's the Joker like in this world? What was Batman's first meeting the Joker in this world? How was the year 1 story in this world with him and Gordon getting to know each other for the first time? I almost want to see all these moments because they've done a good job of making me care about this version of the character and the characters that surround him in this world. So,
neat. Well, I know we're gonna kind of see. I want to see Gordon in this world. If he looks like Jeffrey Wright.
well, that'll be a giveaway, I suppose. If he looks like Jeffrey Wright, then maybe we can start talking. We get another villain introduced, though. Another villain tease. We get Ratcatcher. Yeah. Who is presented.
Which, by the way, I only would have recognized because I've seen Suicide Squad recently. With the mask. So.
Well, we get him presented as an exterminator, but he's like a humane exterminator who tries to get the rats gone without killing them, and people give him shit for it and just demand that he goes in and kills them. Yeah. So he puts on his mask and he does it, and he's not very happy. But he calls human beings vermin. Rats are pleasant. Rats are, dogs are more dangerous than rats are, but people just, treat them badly. And he gets mugged immediately. I also love that he talks about how he moved to Keystone City for better internet, but he got mugged there too, so he just came back.
Someone beat me and stole my shoe, so I take my chances back in Gotham.
I also just love the nudge that Keystone has quicker internet. Yeah. It's a Flash City. So at the end of his scene, he's very upset. He notices a Batman and talks about how Batman was actually there. They kind of met once, and obviously we're both assuming this is the imposter, right?
Imposter. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. It feels that this imposter is going to use him for nefarious means, and it's a shame because you kind of feel sympathetic for this guy because it feels like he really is in a bad place, and he's maybe going to latch on to this Batman, thinking he's the real Batman, and go down a darker path than he should via manipulation. So you feel he's going to be taken advantage of. So credit. Then it's the page that I was talking about earlier, where we get the two sides of the investigative minds, where one side's the detective and one side's Batman, and the background to this is the puzzle pieces of all the players in the story. It's just a gorgeous page. There's not really much to say about it other than that.
I do like the split on the bat. Is that on her side it looks like that bat monster, but on his side it's him.
Yeah, and that's underneath that's in red underneath the jigsaw puzzle, which is all white. And obviously the idea of being a puzzle that's been put together and how that relates to an investigation is obvious. She goes around, Detective Wong. She goes around and interviews Penguin, Black Mask, looking for information. And
they bring up at one point the Sionis family. Wesker does, and about how unless the police start doing a better job, they're leaving town, and we don't want that. So to see Black Mask pop up here, I think is a pretty nice little Easter egg, I guess.
And his underwear as well.
Yeah.
Worth mentioning. But the final scene of the book is that Bruce is looking at all these crime photos. He's trying to figure things out. The doorbell goes, and the cliffhanger is the Detective Wong is there to ask him questions about the Batman. It's a really good cliffhanger because it's really well set up in the book. That she keeps talking about going to ask the rich people. She's starting to suspect that it's someone rich. She's starting to suspect this, and she's sort of like, all of her reasoning feels like it's eventually going to point to Bruce, but she never actually says the name out loud. The ending with this final cliffhanger is like, this makes sense. This is so justified that she comes here at the end of the book.
I do love it's one of those tropes in Batman comics that I always like, how come a smart person hasn't put this together? So I do like that they're doing that here now.
Mm-hmm. And you suspect that there's going to be possibly a bit of a new Gordon vibe to this, where she's by the end of the story presumably going to learn to at least understand him better, at least or at the very least believe that he's not killing people, and go from there. You would assume, but it's so well told, and it's all these characters are so well defined, and it feels like a fairly distinct version of Bruce, although he's still very much Bruce. But it's interesting. It doesn't lean on a Gordon. It doesn't lean on an Alfred. Yeah, we see like it was like one panel of Alfred when Leslie's explained the backstory, but there's no focus on him. Maybe we'll just see him next issue, and that's fine. But this was excellent, and the art is like drop dead gorgeous, and is constantly adding to the mood and the style of the book.
It really doesn't. That usually when Strange Adventures comes out, that's a #1 with a bullet. This is really the first time that it's had some competition. Well, I think so.
Well, when we get to the end and we have to pick, you can properly tell us how much competition it is. But I think we read the premise of this in the Solicits. There's someone going around killing people dressed as Batman. So okay, that sounds like a fun premise, but we'll see what they do with it. This is like the best possible version that I could have imagined of this story. I think the Tompkins therapy angle is really interesting. The actual intimidation factor of whoever this imposter is. Do we have any guesses to who the imposter is?
So it's important that the footage came from Wesker, right? I'm thinking that this is the play on the ventriloquist, is that whoever this is, it's a puppet of the Weskers to try to, push Batman out. Now, I don't know if there's going to be mind control elements. I don't know if they're going to keep it grounded. I do think Wesker's involved. Now, maybe it's not Arnold. Maybe that's the red herring and it's the dad. But the fact that they were the ones that provided the footage of the Batman kicking the people off the building.
It is worth mentioning, even if they're not responsible, although I agree why you think that they might be, because obviously they have this footage. Is that what is 100% is that whoever this is wanted to be seen doing this to discredit Batman.
Right. So
that is important.
So we'll see where the twists and turns go. But yeah, this was really, really good. Do you have any ideas on who you think it is?
I mean, because we're in a different standalone universe, it's very easy to assume that for the pop, they're going to pick someone who will mean something to us, right? So it turns out to be, I don't know, the first name that popped in my head was Tommy Elliott, right? Yeah. For obvious reasons, with Hush and him actually becoming Bruce at one point, But at the same time, is that too trite? Is that too?
Yeah, it's on the nose.
Yeah. Is it more interesting if it's someone who's usually a good guy who's become I don't know. What if this is Harvey Dent? What if Harvey Dent became the imposter Batman?
Right. Maybe that's what leads to him becoming Two-Face. Is he's having an issue, an internal struggle inside.
Who else Who else?
That's a good idea though too, because it was his wanting to fix things that put them out. So how does he fix things?
And I don't know if there's a mention specifically of the Joker. I'm not suggesting that the imposter is Joker by any means, but I don't know if there's a mention. There is a mention, there was like a kerfuffle at the reservoir or something. There's a line like that, which it sounds like a reference to Joker's first, big Gotham antics, because it usually is involving the water supply. But I don't know if there's a direct reference to Joker himself in this issue, so maybe we are going to see something where the Joker's somehow involved. I don't know. But it does kind of feel like it's ripe for someone like they're giving us teases to the ventriloquist, we're giving us teases to Ratcatcher. It wouldn't surprise me if a much bigger A-list villain is involved in some way by the end of this. It's just a question of who, and are they themselves the imposter, or is the imposter someone like like a good. I don't think it's like the Robins or anything like that, because
no, that'd be kind of lazy. I'd be disappointed. What if it's Basil Karlo, not Clayface, the actor?
It's not a terrible idea. It's not terrible.
All right, we should rate this because it's getting late and I'm getting hungry. So we got to get through some books.
All right, Matt, what are you rating it?
I'm gonna give this one a 9.
Yeah, I'm also gonna give it a 9. I thought it was fantastic, and if you didn't pick this up because it was a standalone, separate Black Label thing, I highly encourage you to do so. Because it's better than most of the other books you're going to read this week. So
that's true.
Yeah, it's that simple. All right, Matt.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman 780, Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad with Travis Moore and Steve Pugh on the art. You read this. Take it away.
I did. So I'll kind of make this one a little bit quick. There was no backup, so it's a little bit of a longer story this time around. But this is just as the cover says, Wonder Woman returning from the land of the dead, and kind of the world's reaction to it, and we get a little bit of everybody. It starts off, she's going to the Hall of Justice, and John's there on like teleporter duty, and she just he's opening up a Choco cookie, and he surprises her, or she surprises him. She says hello to the Justice League, and what I love here is that like everyone kind of expected she'd find the way back. They just didn't know when. So there's not really like a surprise, like, Diana, you're alive. It was like, oh, it took you long enough, which is kind of a nice vibe. Like Superman asks, is that really you? Because in their world, of course, there might be imposters and whatnot. And Canary runs in to give her a hug. Leads to her going through the Hall of Justice. Animal Man's there, spills his tray of food. She's surprised by Black Adam. Fate comes in because they need to go. He needs their help in needs her help in Atlantis, tying it into Justice League Dark. So before she leaves, she sees Hippolyta. They hug. She understands why she did what she did, but Hippolyta knows she saved the multiverse. So they have a moment before Fate just leaves, so she never ends up to go help the Justice League Dark. She does end up heading like in the direction of Themyscira, where she helps some Turkish refugees off of their boat. She pulls them from the water, takes the boat up. There's a bunch of the UN White Hats there. We get this real cool image. It's a very Superman-esque of her lifting the boat up and out of the water with them all have their phones up saying that it's Wonder Woman. And now this is her big return to the world. The art in this is really nice. There's a color gradient that I'm sure Connor would really love. Like when she's saving this boat, it's like at sunset in the ocean. So it goes from these blues to purples to yellows and oranges. It looks really pretty. But Steve is here. And did you read because I read part of the Wonder Woman special. There's a very long-winded Steve Trevor story that, seeing his reaction here makes that hit a little bit better about how he's making the documentary about her and whatnot. But he's happy that she's back.
It was the first thing I thought of when you said people were filming her on their phones and stuff. It tied in with the ending of that story.
Yeah, and so um, Donna and Cass are there, um, and they make note that this takes place after Wonder Girl 4. Um, and then there's a group called the Holiday Girls, who I guess is a take on, that old Wonder Woman trope of the girls that she would hang out with from the college. But here they're a biker gang, so it's like an all-girl. It's the Holiday Girls Motorcycle Club, which is weird. So I don't know if they've been established before. Um, but they're all excited. They claim it's a holiday. Etta sees her come back. Um, it cuts to Karak, where I guess the Band of Migdal are now. They have a stronghold set up there. And Nubia looks through. In Band of Migdal, they see that she's back, but Artemis isn't happy. She's like, we're warriors, and the Reverie, save the Reverie, return to duties, and find Kreen Faruka. So I don't know any of that stuff has to do. That's all new to me. But then we get her returning to Themyscira, and she interacts with Nubia, and they want to have the ceremony and festival for her, but she's like, hey, I need to rest. Like, I've just come back. I need to sleep. Nubia notices her sword. She's like, yeah, I got this from a friend in Asgard. And she's like, I'm just not Wonder Woman anymore. So she kind of feels like she doesn't have a place. And this book does a good job at showing her impact with all these other characters that have kind of it's taken all of these other characters to kind of add up to who Diana was as a person. And that's kind of what makes her special. But Nubia's like, hey, your mom said something, she gave me this key in case of your return. And I think I remember reading that in one of the specials that we got when she left Nubia in charge. And
that sounds familiar. I think I remember reading that.
And it's a trunk that has, the lasso in it. So it connects it there. In between all of that, we see Yara react in Brazil, where she's still hanging out. She gets up from the table where she's playing cards with everybody and leaves. But right below that, in parts unknown, which as a wrestling fan cracks me up, Dr. Psycho's there, and he's very surprised, and he calls and says, or someone calls him and is like, yeah, of course I saw. We have to get ahead of this. I'll be on my way shortly. So they're teasing stuff, but after the Nubia scene, she gets the lasso, and she talks about how she needs, to go sleep, because as soon as she got back, it's been just a whirlwind, and she looks into the reflection, and it's a little bit sinister staring back at her. And as someone that's read this, outside of the whole Janice stuff, I'm not sure what this could mean. But before she goes to leave, she wakes or takes a nap, wakes up on Themyscira, and jumps off with the rainbow behind her, off to go, reintroduce herself back properly as Wonder Woman. And it says next, Wonder Women. So this has laid all the seeds, but it's basically kind of a welcome back issue that almost would have fit better instead of being the next issue. Part of that, big celebration. Other than the page count.
There was definitely a few stories in that you could have got rid of to make room for it.
So I only made it through the Tom King story just because of the, kind of what it was hinting at with the time at play and whatnot. And make it much farther. But yeah, it's a fine issue. And we're going to get back to more Wonder Woman shenanigans, which makes me ask you, now that she's done with all the myths and gods, are you going to hop back on? Or are you happy with just the Adventures of Yara Flor?
Well, what's funny is that I actually said when I read the special last week that the Steve Trevor story by the main team I thought was a pretty solid story, and it made me interested in possibly their take on just an actual current Wonder Woman ongoing story as opposed to their weird Asgard dream shit that was was what put me off before. I'm not against it. Technically speaking, this would have been the one that I would have jumped on, but it sounds like I could probably jump on the next one potentially.
Yeah, because this is almost like a cameo fest where she goes around and we get the Justice League, we get the Amazons, we get Yara, we get the Wonder Girls.
I'll see. I'll see how I'm feeling when the next issue's out. I think more than
Gotcha.
anything. But
Well, that makes sense. So I'll give this a 7.5. I mean, the art really does a lot of the stuff here, and it's very wordy in places. And I just kind of skimmed all over that, but yeah, it's solid. You know, it's dependable, but I'm definitely curious to see where this goes. So yeah.
I hope the story, gets a better direction. Something that actually it can actually focus on. And
it seems like with the Dr. Psycho stuff, how prominent he was in the Asgard stuff. That's the thread. Because I don't know if they're leaving Wonder Woman to go do the Batgirls.
I don't think so.
Creative team.
I don't think so. I think they're doing both.
If they're staying on here, they're definitely seeding that throughout and making Dr. Psycho kind of a bigger threat, which is good. Because you kind of get tired of seeing Cheetah and Veronica Cale, and as good as those are, they're these kind of tragic, Wonder Woman villains, and we get that a lot. Where I don't need Dr. Psycho to be tragic. He's just
of course not.
Piece of crap, and you want to see him get kicked in the teeth by Diana. So whoever he's working with, I'm curious to see where that plays. So yeah.
All right, Batman Fear State issue. Sorry, no, that's not. That's not the name of the book. Batman Urban Legends issue 8, which does have Fear State banner at the top of it. Hence my my flub there. So none of us read issue 7 because it was just the Future State batch of stories, and it was just kind of it came in a busy week, and it was like, yeah, it's fine. Whereas this has 2 tie-ins to Fear State, hence the banner. So I'll talk about that as we get to them. The first story in this, as per usual, it's 4 stories. The first and the last are full 20-page stories. The middle 2 are about 10-ish each. So the first one's a Batwoman story. It's part 1 of 2 by Alyssa Wong, writing, and Vasco Georgiev on the art.
Georgiev. And I know that
okay, there you go.
From hockey.
I'll tell you
the tender for the New York Rangers. His last name was Georgiev, or Georgiev, however you want to pronounce it. But yeah, you're close though.
Okay, yeah, I'll go with it. So this turned out to be one of the Fear State tie-ins, and I'll be honest, the Fear State tie-in nature of this I thought was a little bit weak sauce. I didn't even realize it was one of the tie-in stories until it got to a certain point where Cass mentioned that Oracle, there was a fake Oracle saying things, and I was like, oh, I guess this is a Fear State tie-in.
So I did read this one. I had time to read this one, and yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna be mad at more Kate because I've been missing her, and of course her with Cass. I love that. We didn't get a lot of them in Tynan's tech run, but when we did, when they were sharing a panel, it was good. They always seem to be off doing separate stuff for that team. So that's why I wanted to read this. And, as a Kate Kane story, it's pretty good. As a Fear State tie-in, like you said, it's real weak.
Yeah, it's a bit odd in that sense. It's also kind of funny that the plot of this, in the same week we get Batman the Imposter, is about a imposter Cass. There's an imposter Cassandra Cain Batgirl running around killing people, and that's kind of what the plot of this is. And it turns out to be this... not the fake Oracle per se, but another hacker person who sort of talks to them eventually. But Kate finds Cass, and they're together, and it kind of gets the plot going. The other big part of this is that Alice, but not Alice, she's not Alice anymore.
No, it's the sister. Is it Betty?
Yeah, Betty.
Yeah,
Betty. Yeah. She's dealing with the fact that she's sort of gotten over her Alice thing, but she still lives with it though. She still sort of sees Alice in the reflection sometimes. She has a freak out moment, that kind of thing. The big crux of the issue for her is that at the end of the story, it's they need to track down whoever's behind this fake Cass murdering stuff is. So she's like, hey, we've got some resources here that we can pull upon. I mean, I don't have contacts, but Alice. So Alice has contacts. So it looks like the second part of this is going to be either her letting Alice out or pretending to be Alice to make use of the criminal underworld contacts that Alice has, which is okay. It's one of those things where I'm glad that at least it's in a different place, because I got so sick of everything being about Alice when I was reading Batwoman before in the last Batwoman Soul series. When the twist happened like halfway through that book that Alice was involved, that was when I completely lost interest.
Yeah,
because it's always what our book's been about, and it just feels like move on.
It's time to move on. There's better stories in there.
Betty being back to being Betty though, but sort of dealing with her inner Alice, but mostly being a good character, is definitely a new status quo. So it is therefore more interesting.
Yeah. Well, and I like how we only see Alice through the looking glass, and that's such a good.
Oh sure, but I have to admit though, I did kind of feel a bit of a see when she first saw Alice in the reflection of the water or tea or whatever it is. I did kind of have a moment of like, oh god, are we really? Are we doing this?
There was a better way to do it, and they did it where she's trying to put the makeup on, and Cass busts through, and it leads her to hit her eye, and her makeup ends up becoming like her Alice makeup. And I thought that was way more effective. That stood out more than looking into the reflection. But at the end there, where she talks about letting Alice out or whatever, and it's through that little makeup mirror. That was a nice touch. I like that because it plays on the whole Alice in Wonderland, Alice through the looking glass. So
yeah, I think the art is a bit hit and miss. The faces, in particular, Montoya shows up at one point and kind of has a bit of a fight with Kate about looking for Cass and whatnot. I thought a lot of the facials on the characters were a little bit off or over exaggerated. There's some really pouty lips at a couple of points. Just stuff that doesn't look that great. Once they're in the costume, I think Cassandra Cain, when she's in costume, because they don't have to draw the face, I think a lot of artists get an easy time with her and can still have her look really good, and I think that's true here as well. I think when we see her in the alleyway fighting some magistrate drones, she looks great. And then Kate shows up and they have a bit of a team up. But once we get our mask off again, all of a sudden, all the critiques I was having with the art kind of started to bleed back into it, which is a shame. So yeah, what was the name of this villain again? I forgot who it was. Seer, that's who it was. I knew it was a stupid name. Yeah. So Seer starts talking to them through a bunch of TVs, and the Oracle comms channel, whatever it is, and they're like, shit, we have to go and deal with something. Betty is attacked by magistrate drones, but Alice took over and stabbed the shit out of them. But this is basically the end of the story where they're talking about what to do next, and she's like, hey, Alice has got contacts, so let's do that. Yeah. It's okay. I wasn't in love with it. I think its Fear State tie-in nature is kind of lame. It feels like the story didn't need to be tied into Fear State. They've just kind of worked a little bit of magistrate into it just so that it can be tied into Fear State. But the actual story of someone like having this fake Cass murdering people in a video and leaking that out, that could just be a standalone story. There's nothing about it that needs to be connected to Fear State.
Nope.
Betty pretending to be Alice or having to call upon Alice's connections is a little bit interesting, so I'll see what they do with that in the second part. But the art was very iffy on the faces, so I wasn't necessarily enjoying the art in this one. So I'm a bit lukewarm on it overall. Well, you read this one. Do you want to read it?
Yeah, I'll read it. This is 6.5. Like you said, the art was real hit or miss, and the story doesn't do anything new. But when it does hit, stuff really resonated. But yeah, kind of disappointed. But yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll probably give it like probably like a 6. Yeah, it's not bad, but I wouldn't like go out my way for it. The next story is a story about Batman looking for a kidnapped child who's been taken by Professor Pig, who's going to turn her into one of his dolls. But it's all framed around the three piggies, right, in their houses, and the big bad wolf. I always get this fairy tale mixed up with the Red Riding Hood and the Red Riding Hood. Like I always mix up my wolf stories.
Gotcha. Red Riding Hood has him becoming grandma.
Yes,
Three Little Pigs has him huffing and puffing to blow the house down.
Yes, but it's all framed around Three Little Pigs, and it's him going to various villains to get information. He goes to Penguin, he goes to, funnily enough, the ventriloquist and Scarface, and he gets information of 3 locations. And the first one, he goes in and beats everyone up, and that's like that's the Straw House. And then he goes to the one made of sticks, and he beats everyone up there. And basically, it's flashing back to Thomas like reading young Bruce this story as a kid, and when he gets to the final location where Professor Pig actually is with the kid, and he's about to do the surgery, his art as he calls it, it's that part in the story where, and when Bruce is hearing this as a kid, he's told that the wolf can't get in because it's the brick house or the stone house. So he tries to go down the chimney, but he ends up getting into the boiling water and dying. And all the pigs have him for stew. So when he gets to that part, he's like, "That's stupid. The wolf is stupid. I would be more prepared." So in the main part of the story, his bat tank like goes through the wall and gets into the I guess like an old factory or something that pigs taken over, maybe an old abattoir. And he saves the kid, and the story ends with him just he gets out of the bat tank and says little pig, end of story. It's okay. This is like this is the sort of thing where if you threw this into one of those 80-page 100-page specials and this was like an 8 or 10-page story in it, I'd be like, okay, that was a neat little idea for a short, as you frame it around 3 little pigs and you have Batman looking for Professor Pig in the context of that. Okay.
Seems more coherent than the story that King wanted to tell that Bruce apparently loved as a kid.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Because part of me was thinking, okay, I get that we're after Professor Pig, but how does this tie in? But then there's like, oh, he's got 3 locations and he's going to go through them one by one. Okay, all right. Very good. Yeah, it's all right. It is kind of funny though to like take a story like that and take the villain and be like, no, he's the one that Batman's going to go, no, I'm doing this job. I would do it better. I'll get in. Right. I'll get into that brick house. Don't you worry. Just take
that dumb.
Yeah, just take some heavy machinery. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
Stupid wolf. So it's okay. Yes. I mean, I wouldn't rate it too highly. The art is more stylized than the previous story, and I think that's okay. It's more stylized. It's obviously, I can't remember the art stuff on my head now that I'm not on the page, but
it's Christian Ward did the art and the
story. That's right.
Story.
I would describe his art as almost a little Carmine DJ Domenico-esque.
Okay.
It's got a little bit of that vibe. But yeah, the art's not bad. It's definitely stylized, not something that I'd want in every type of comic by any means, but I think it fits here well enough, especially since it's going with the fairy tale vibe. So yeah, I'll stretch this out to a 7, I think, for this one. So it's cool. Next story was an Azrael story. With him going after a villain called Bullet Tooth, but Bullet Tooth commits suicide by setting off an explosion. And then we see some of Azrael, Jean-Paul, at like the hospice where he's volunteering. He's trying to give this guy who's dying a pep talk and whatever. Batman comes to see him though that night because he's like, hey, there's some bodies from an incident. And Jean-Paul's like, that's not me. The guy blew the place up himself. That's not on me. But he makes it very clear that he doesn't want him to be killing anyone. Accuses him of also being involved in some guy got like killed with a big axe, and he's like, I don't use an axe. I use a flaming sword. That's not axes aren't my thing. So yeah, and the end of the story is that Bullet Tooth gets up out of the morgue and walks out. And a big theme of this story, like throughout, is the idea that death has no jurisdiction in Gotham. That phrase is repeated a couple of times. Yeah. It does point out at the end of this that, as an editor's note saying, this story takes place before the events of Arkham City issue 1, which I thought was an interesting thing for it to point out. So, neat. Which was a good first issue, by the way. I don't know if you read that.
No.
I'd recommend it.
Gotcha.
It's good. Me and Connor were both into it.
Right, that was the one that's an homage to Arkham Asylum.
Kind of. It's a very different story though.
Gotcha.
It's a really good horror book, I would say, about like all these villains being out in Gotham again, and it is in continuity because it's set after AD.
Yeah. Cool.
So I'd recommend catching up for the issue 2 next month.
Cool.
So that was it. I the art was. Actually, now the art, like I thought the art was a bit. It was stylized in a way that it looked a bit Cartoon Network to me. It had the thin Johnny Bravo legs, and there was and there was sort of a lack of detail in the faces that it was going for, which was definitely a stylistic choice. It wasn't just like a laziness thing, but I don't know if I was that into it, I will say. And the story's part one of I don't know, have maybe 1 or 3 or something like that. I can't remember what it said at the start, but it was kind of okay. Like, it's like I'm not a big Asriel guy, if I'm honest, so I'm not necessarily like jonesing for an Asriel story at the best of times. So, it's okay. I'd say the sequentials in the art, motion wise, are alright. There's a nice kind of flow to it, but I don't like the actual body and face style of the art that much. So, I'll probably give this like a 6 as well at the Batwoman story, I think. Yeah, not bad, but not necessarily setting the world on fire either. And then the final story, now this is interesting, because I felt lied to when I started this. You start this final story, and it says future state, and then in brackets, plus 30 years, right? So it's saying it's future state 30 years from now. That's what it's saying. And I thought, wait a minute, I thought I was getting a future state tie-in. What is this nonsense?
Yeah.
Right? No, don't react too soon, because this actually goes interesting places. So you've got, like, not old man Duke, he's not ancient, but like, middle-aged Duke. And he's riding a beast that turns out to be what's his name?
The Metamorpho.
No. Tickle.
Okay. Oh, from the Clarion and Witch Boy.
So he's riding Tickle, and Jefferson, as we know from Future State, is just like lightning now. He's just like the embodiment of lightning, and he's tied to the sword. Basically, they're like making a last stand against this villain who we don't really know yet, who's got a big cloak on. He's coming for them, and they're racing to this location to use some magic, and Duke jumps through a portal, and then he goes back in time. This is a Fear State tie-in, because it goes back in time to present day. So I like this. I appreciated this. It swerved me into being mad at first, because I was like, wait, this is a Future State story. Why am I getting this? And then it goes back in time. There's like a 2-page layout showing you like sort of like, okay, this is Fear State 24 years from now. This is Fear State in 18 years. This is Fear State in 6 years, 2 years. And then it's like, okay, now he lands in Gotham. It's the only chance they've got to save in the future. And Batman would do anything it takes to save the future, so they're going to as well. So Jefferson and Duke arrive, Duke doesn't even come back in time. Sorry, he just sends Jefferson, who's like living lightning, back. Right, so this is the full lightning version of Jefferson who gets sent back in time. Duke himself doesn't come. I misspoke there when I said that. So he kind of, even like a little, almost a reference to the Terminator. When he sort of like lands on the ground, he lands with his fist down and he's like on his knee. It's very Terminator-esque, the pose. But he asked some guys for, what was the last big thing that happened in Gotham, and they're like, I don't know, the Joker War, I guess? Was that the last big thing that happened? Okay, he's like, shit, I'm a week or two later than I was expecting to be. So he finds where the Outsiders are at this time, which they were basically fighting this underground Mortal Kombat style tournament against monsters. To stop them from taking over the surface world. Really random, but it's one of those weird things where you just put it in as like almost like a joke that this was going on. And this is what they were doing, and they were working with Frankenstein to do this. It's just a neat little aside. But Metamorpho's there, Katana's there. It's the Outsiders, right? And they talk about how in between books they've been working as a team where they swap in a 5th member. In this case, it's Frankenstein, but whoever's got like a job for them will be the 5th member. But then those 4 are the main Outsiders team. But future Jefferson, all lightning Jefferson, shows up. Present day Jefferson's like recognizes enough on him. He's like, "Hey, your energy signatures are me. You're me. Are you from like another world? Where you from?" He's like, "No, I'm here from the future." Duke becomes one of the world's greatest. What's the word he used? Sorcerers? Not sorcerer. Mages. That was the word. Mages. Because he's got a demon arm in the future. You see, he becomes a mage.
Okay.
So he sent me back through time because there's a guy. In Gotham, who's going to become this villain. What was his name? Jonah Winfield, who was one of the students of Jonathan Crane, and Jonathan Crane drove him mad. And this was years ago when he was a student.
Right.
And he left Gotham, but he came back to try and counter his fear. But little did he know that when Jonathan Crane did an attack on like a subway station recently, with a fear toxin. He was infected with fear toxin for the second time. But because he'd already been exposed, his antibodies were different than everyone else's, and it kind of like grew and became this worse thing where he could basically spread fear in people, basically airborne. Which maybe this is a very topical thing because it's kind of pandemic-esque.
Yeah,
this idea.
I mean, it fits in, and this is Brandon Thomas, right?
Yeah.
That checks out with him.
So we get this set up, and I'm like, you know what? Is this how they're going to like kind of like write Fear State out? Is they're actually going to do like a Terminator-esque plot where they actually stop it from happening by having Lightning Jefferson come from the future and helping the Outsiders stop it from ever going down that path? Like this one domino is the one thing that's going to stop the Fear State that we saw in Gotham from actually happening. That's actually what, if that's what this is genius. This is a genius way of doing it. I legit got excited with the premise here. So they go and find this guy who's starting to be kind of monstrous. He's got a cloak on, and they're like, "Hey, we're trying to help you. We're going to try and stop this." But when the guy like attacks them, they all start seeing their own fears. There's a full page spread with in the reflections. You see them all sort of facing their worst nightmares, various villains and whatnot. And then the end of the issue is that Tim shows up and announces himself as Red Robin, which I thought was interesting because he's not been called Red Robin in a while, but sure.
No, I mean, but they also got rid of Drake in his UPS uniform.
That's true.
So, yeah.
But so Tim shows up at the end to help, and that's kind of the cliffhanger. And it's funny though, because one of them actually yells out, "The Joker's getting away," but it's only because one of them saw this bad guy as the Joker, because he's the Joker's his
Joker got
fear.
away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. So, easily this was the standout story of the book.
Sounds like it. Yeah. Duke riding Tickle with a demon arm.
I mean, to sum this up, this is an outsider story, and we have typically enjoyed most versions of the Outsiders ever since they came back in that book, right? And the little glimpses we've seen in future state of them and whatnot. It's an outsider story where Lightning Future Jefferson goes back in time to help the current present-day Outsiders try and stop this character who is going to spread fear to the point where fear state or future state in Gotham is going to happen. This may end up being like such an important story, at least in the sense that, at least if you care about why didn't everything happen, this might be important to that. But at the very least, so far it's fun. The art is the art's not amazing. Like, it's very house style. It's very serviceable.
Okay.
There's not a great necessarily tone to it or anything like that, but it's not bad by any means either. There's the odd wonky face or whatever, but for the most part, it's just kind of typical. Some pages are better than others, and it's all I can really say about it, which isn't, I know it's not like a glaring thing, but I'd probably go as far and give this like a nice 7.5. I think the story concept is super fun. I love being mad for a couple of pages before I realized, oh wait, this is a Fear State tie-in. It's just going about it in a really interesting angle.
You sound like me in therapy. Yeah, no, but I like being mad.
I like being mad when it's like it's almost designed to give me the catharsis of like, oh no, I was worried for nothing a couple of pages later. That's just good storytelling. So art's a bit ho-hum, but I would say the premise is fun, and I'm kind of intrigued by what this is going to do. So this is part 1 of 3, I think. So they've got me for this story, at least in Urban Legends, for the next couple of issues, because I damn well want to see the rest of this now. Which is annoying, because the rest of the stories didn't wow me that much, so I could have very easily just said, I'll just sit out from Urban Legends now. But then you get to this last story, and I'm like, oh damn it, this is actually quite interesting. You son of a bitch.
That's funny.
Son of a bitch. So yeah, 7.5 on that one for me. If the art was better, I would have probably comfortably scraped that 8, but it didn't, so that's where it'll sit. Alright, Matt, Superman and the Authority issue 4, Grant Morrison with Travel Foreman and Mikel Janin. Take it away.
So, still not sure when this is supposed to take place, but the last issue ended with Ultra Humanite taking Superman into a model city of Kandor, and he's going to take his brain, put it into Superman's body, doesn't realize that Superman is weakening, but still that's better than nothing. as he's monologuing in his Grundy body, with the brain sticking out, you see Superman start to heal. As the buzzsaw that's supposed to cut open his brain comes open. He goes at strength, and Kandor, he should be powerless, but Superman says the Kryptonian environment's offline, and you didn't even notice, and I have all the strength to handle you. Superman and Lois ends up being in there too, and this is all part of the plan for him to defeat the Ultra Humanite. She hits him with white kryptonite, which deteriorates plants, which is like an old school, like Silver Age Kryptonian or kryptonite thing, which coming from Morrison makes perfect sense. And he rips the Grundy head off, and basically Lois is like, "Hey, Smallville, what's up with you ripping his head off?" He's like, "Oh, it's Grundy. He can be regrown. He's not a real human. Like, we'll send it back to Slaughter Swamp. He'll regrow." What can you learn about the brain? So it's a super creepy. They take this head and they put it in this Kryptonian device, and there's basically a product code, and it ends up being Brainiac. And Brainiac is the one that was running all of this. They end up talking through this the Kryptonian headband that puts them in contact. Interesting thing here is I don't know if this is a Luthor Brainiac combo, but this is a Brainiac that isn't a Luthor like business suit, and he's monologuing about him wanting to get basically Superman's brain, and he's like, if I'm gonna save the planet, I have to get rid of you. You're the thing. So that's what makes me think it's definitely a Luthor Brainiac combo.
We shall call him Brainiac.
Or you call him Luthiac like they did on the cartoon, but that's fine too.
I was trying to do some alliteration with the B and the R, but fine. Fine.
Gotcha. So he says that he's the one that put Ultra Humanite up to this, and so wherever they are, this is the no, I guess not. I don't know if he's talking back through time because it gets all Morrison-y, but that's fine. That basically he's the one that put Ultra Humanite up to this because he wanted to be the one. He doesn't like that Superman is the man of tomorrow because Ultra Humanite's the tomorrow's human today, and that body's the key to his eternal life, and and then it cuts back to the Authority, and they're fighting in Dubai. The team that Ultra Humanite put up, but you have Iron Cross, who's an indestructible white supremacist. He gets taken out by Midnighter and Manchester Black and Natasha, who Manchester Black ends up getting into his mind. And there's basically not much to do because, as he says, he's a dumb white supremacist, which leads to Natasha just walloping him with the hammer, with her hammer, and removing his head, which was quite, strange. And then there's this basically living AI that's running out of nano. It's very, very Morrison. That's basically a nano colony come to life whose name is Silva's daughter at Civ Mento, which is also engineered by an alien activist, aka Civ. So Civ tries to take out Natasha, Natasha Irons. Wait, is it? I'm having a brain fart again. It is, right?
Natasha Irons, yes.
Nat. What color Nat? Oh. And then this, I'm telling you, my brain's not what it was. It wasn't great before.
I mean, I wasn't completely paying attention, but assuming you're talking about the niece of Steel, then yes.
For some reason, Natalie Irons came into my brain, and I think the multiverse is crossing over.
No. You know, I completely feel here because on Superman and Lois, his daughter is called Natalie.
Okay, there we go. I wouldn't know that because I've only seen 1.5 episodes. So
that's a bizarre prediction then that you've made subconsciously.
Right? So, and then Midnight ends up fighting someone called Flower, who's like a French super soldier who's kind of French Black Widow plus Captain America. But Superman and Luthiac are talking that Civ's a refugee from a planet called Compitalia. She fights to raise awareness for the ignored and the forgotten of her community, but arriving on Earth and inadvertently eradicating the town of Lamont kind of faced, she didn't mean to do bad, but, so basically Luthor Brainiac's trying to put him at, odds with this thing. But it says that Natasha irons is so much more than the armor, and she comes up with a way to defeat this person. Yeah, my neighbor just slammed the door and it's super loud. Manchester Black ends up fighting Coldcast, who's a former elite member, one of his, who's a master of First Force. They end up fighting. Apollo fights this new version of OMAC, who's looking for Light Ray. They end up not wanting to fight because Light Ray is being taken away by Eclipso, which I'm really excited because I love Eclipso. But this just basically comes down to OMAC reawakening, or not OMAC, Enchantress reawakening Light Ray with the help of Apollo by, getting the light going. Manchester Black ends up defeating his guy from the Elite. They all end up, victorious, which of course pisses off Luther because, this was not the plan. And he said he quit the board. And well, we find out that this Luther Brainiac, it's like in a pool of other connected brains, and that basically that Superman just quit, and that by walking away, that means he wins. He doesn't have to engage. And then he goes, and who knows, Brainiac, perhaps you'll find a new way to work with this new generation, but as for you and I, we're done. And that's just basically by defeating Brainiac by not engaging, which leads to Ultra Humanite saying, like, I'll wear this brain. You tell me, tell me what I need to do to kill his son, which body I need to wear, which leads to all these different Ultra Humanites. There's a Chemo, there's a Tyrannosaur, it looks like. Just basically what version's he's gonna use to kill John. And that basically the Superman assembled the Authority for a reason, and that they're gonna be going somewhere and they're gonna take this Superman ship, which is, a nice play on Superman having to leave. I almost feel like they're trying to tie it into the War stuff, but this is such a different universe that I don't know how they could. But judging how Action ended last with the Authority showing up, I don't know. But so, consider this next mission our practice run. Superman tells them, losing power, running on empty, no time like the present, a contender for the most dangerous world in the galaxy, and that they're heading to War World. And it says to be continued in Action Comics 1036. Don't understand how this is all going to play in, but Superman ends it by saying, let's bring the thunder. He's got Light Ray, OMAC, who looks like Mongal, Enchantress, Manchester Black, Natasha Irons, and Apollo Midnighter. And then it says later, and it cuts to Superman getting into his traditional suit, and he very much looks like Kingdom Come Superman here. He's talking to Manchester Black, and he says, activate your earplugs while I open a sonic lock to the Tesseract. So I'm thinking this is having to do with how they're going to explain all this. He goes, he came into a position of a fragment of something called the Wall, which is the Source Wall, and in it, he goes to a part of the wall which has, like, I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it's one of those faces looking like Darkseid, but a little bit different, and it just says Light Ray is and to be continued. So I don't know how this is all going to play out. It was a pretty solid conclusion to this miniseries. It's very Morrison-y. It almost feels like this is, for what I criticize Bendis on, for whatever his story is the next chapter, this feels very much like what Morrison wanted to do going forward from his Action Comics run, because it very much plays in with the Final Crisis and then the Action Comics and all of that type of stuff. But yeah, the art's all Janin. It looks great. Like the fights, his Eclipso. I wish he was given more to do besides just stand and try to corrupt Light Ray. But but yeah, no, I'll give this a 7.5. It's pretty good. I don't recommend it to everybody though, because it's not going to be like everyone's cup of tea. And I feel like even just rushing past it, people are going to be upset that I didn't give it its proper time. But like, it's like, I understand what Morrison wants to do with Superman. It's just not exactly what I'm enjoying and what's going on in like Action and even what Taylor's doing in Son of Superman. It's very much out there stuff. Like Natasha's fighting a living algorithm basically. And so as a whole, this whole mini, outside the second issue, which was, introducing each of the authority, a little bit weak sauce. I mean, like that each of those introductions was by a different artist. That one was kind of Morrison's kind of more over the top writing. But so here it really came in, pulled itself together. It's nice to have Janin on the whole issue. So yeah, 7.5.
Okay, cool. I don't really regret not reading it, to be honest. I mean, I read the first issue.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to you.
Nah. Yeah. Oh well. So one last book to talk about. Every month on patreon.com/mailfuzztv. One of the higher tiers, you can make myself or Connor read a book, and I will be reading The Joker, issue 8, for that very purpose. And this gets to explaining of who Lady Bane is. We get the backstory of Lady Bane in this issue. If anyone remembers, the cliffhanger in the last issue is Gordon was sitting speaking with an Interpol lady, and then Lady Bane showed up and said, "Hello," in the last page. I'm being a little facetious, but that was the gist of it. So, she she doesn't play too nice. She does rip off Interpol lady's arm in the opening scene, which it's a bit violent. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. So that's kind of the start where it starts, and Gordon's horrified. Lady Bane basically grabs Gordon, kidnaps him, takes him out. There's actually a really fun action sequence at the start where Gordon's tied up in the back of a car, and she actually takes on a police force in a helicopter by herself by using a car door as a shield, hitting a guy with it, throwing it up into the helicopter, the blades, and then the helicopter blows up, and she walks away from that without looking at the explosion, like a total action movie badass.
Of course, you don't look into the explosion. Cool guys do.
Exactly.
Cool Lady Banes.
So, but yeah, she takes Gordon, and then when he wakes up on a boat, she takes off his binds, and he's like saying, "Who the hell are you? Who do you work for?" And she's like, "I am vengeance, Mr. Gordon." And she gives her backstory. So basically, and this is what most of the issue is now, is this like flashback. It's explained that the people behind Santa Prisca, the people in charge, like, they didn't necessarily care for Bane's obsession with Batman, but Bane does a lot for Santa Prisca in terms of the aura, in terms of like their status. So they effectively wanted to make a new Bane, and they actually had like her designed in a test strip. She basically finds this out, that they had Joker help like make her in a test strip, and she was grown in a lab with scientists and all that. Or maybe it wasn't Joker was involved, sorry, maybe I'm just conflating that. But they had scientists use Venom, and she actually grew in a test tube of Venom, and when she was released from it, she basically already had an addiction to Venom. But she was born as an adult as well, so she never had a childhood. We see like panels of her growing in the test tube.
Right, she's almost kind of like a version of X-23.
A little bit, yeah. She's like X-23 Bane in a weird way.
Like, yeah, I mean, granted, she lived a life and whatnot, and was a typical clone that way. This is comic book born in a test tube, fully grown. Yeah. She's almost like X-23 meets a Terminator.
Yeah, so yeah, it's like the file just says Bane Mark II. Like Bane Mark II Vengeance is what it says on the file.
Nice.
So yeah, basically the leaders of Santa Prisca made a deal with the secret lab to design her. Obviously Joker has been causing chaos, and they sent her after Joker. But she's basically upset that she doesn't really have any real motivation. Like the hatred of Joker has been kind of like designed into her. So she hates Joker and she wants to kill him, but she doesn't like that she doesn't really have a real reason for it. And she takes the ties off Gordon, and he asks what she did. And she basically, when she found this out, because she was there to like, look for Joker, because Joker was meant to be in this lab, but there was a secret compartment that led to all this information about herself, and the second level of it. And she killed her entire team that went with her, because part of their job was to burn the evidence of how she was created, so she would never find out. At least seemingly, that's what it seems like.
Right.
So she kills the rest of the team, and Gordon, it cuts back to present day, and Gordon's like, "Are you going to kill me?" And she's like, "No." And, "Well, what do you want with me then?" And she's like, "I want your passion." And he's like, wait, what? What are you talking about? It's like, you're an old man, you've lived a long life, and you've tried to do good. It seems like you've tried to be a good man. And you're here to hunt the Joker because of what the Joker's done. Your hatred and your feelings for him are real, all that kind of thing. You know, when I had the Joker before and I had him tied up and I tortured him, or if I do get my hands on him, like, I know I can describe to you how I'm going to make it last, how I'm going to inflict punishment, how I'm going to, like, rip out body parts, but in a way that will not put him into shock, so he'll be there to experience it for as long as possible. And I'll do all this, and I've thought about it, I know what I'm going to do. But ultimately, it's all for nothing because none of the feelings that I have are real. And she talks about how she'd bury him, but then guard the grave for a week, dig him back up to make sure he's still dead, and then set him on fire. Like, it's really in depth. Like, she goes really in depth into this process of how she's going to kill the Joker. And then says, you know, I saw you have a chance to shoot Joker, and you can't do it. You think you can, but we both know you can't. So how about you give me my purpose? You give me, like, real purpose that I know is real and comes from a genuine place. I'll be your vengeance, Jim Gordon. And that's what the story's called. It's called Gordon's Vengeance, this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I know where he is. We can go get him. And I'll do what you can't. And, you know, we both get what we need. And that's basically it. Basically, she says, oh, there's another lab somewhere, or a villa somewhere that will be hiding. And, you know, that's what it says, Next Dawn of Joker. That title's actually really, it's making me think of Dawn of Justice, and now I'm annoyed. But yeah. But I'm sure that's an intentional pull. So this is a really solid issue. But again, it's very focused. It takes, in the same way that one of the issues a few ago dove into the Texas Chainsaw family who got rich and explained who they were. This one fully explains who this character is. And it's actually quite an interesting, you know, because I was kind of just expecting, a big tough woman becomes the new Bane, but no. Like, there's this whole backstory where she's not, she's not just like a big evil bad guy. She's actually someone who is now turning on the people who created her and doesn't just want to do it for them. She wants to actually feel something. She wants to actually have her own story. And if she can't have her own, she at least wants to base it on someone who does have a genuine feeling that she feels is honorable. So she's effectively offering her murder hands to Jim Gordon. Which I think is interesting from a narrative perspective and from a character perspective for Gordon, because it's kind of given him this really convenient, easy out. Like, if he decides to let her kill Joker, is it the same as him pulling the trigger himself? Does he sleep easier with that knowledge? You know, there's questions there to come from this that I think are quite interesting. So, I'll happily give this a 7. Why is it only a 7 and not any higher? You guessed it, Gillen March is on R. So there's lines and there's lines and there's all sorts of lines that I don't like.
Oh boy.
There's muscles. Lady Bane's very, very muscular.
Yeah.
Like, overly muscular. So that is why it's not going any higher. The backup, just quickly, we have Harper working with Orca to break out this character Kelly. But while they're on their way out, Punchline actually puts on her outfit and goes on the comms and says, you've put a device in to open all the doors, but you know what? You can only get out through us, or something to that effect. And it basically, you know, ends with them entering into a big fight where, you know, we knew you were going to leave, so we're all going to have to actually do combat. But there's a big sort of face turn from Orca, who jumps in and starts helping the fight anyway, even though she said she wouldn't because it's too risky. And Harper says, why are you doing this? Like, why are you helping when you said you wouldn't? And she says, because you didn't ask me to. So it was a nice little moment for Orca. Because this is something Orca's had recently from, like, I think, Nightwing onwards. Of, like, turning over a new leaf, you know, story beat. So it ends with Harper running out of the prison with Kelly and Orca getting stabbed by Punchline in the shoulder, it looks like. And that's it. These backup stories have all been kind of weird, and there's not enough time to really do much with them. This one boils down to essentially 2 conversations and a fight. It's probably better than the last couple of chapters because it's a bit more straightforward. So I'll give it that if nothing else. But you know, and the art isn't necessarily to my taste. But bit in the. I mean, I don't know what I've said about it before. Whatever I said about it before still applies. That's basically my thoughts on it. Backup's like I don't know, maybe a 6, maybe scraping a 6.
Okay.
5.5 maybe. Something in there. I always say it's hard to judge these backups when they feel like you're not getting a full meal each time, because like how harsh are you because of that, or how much
you can't rate the appetizer the same as the
it's very weird. I'm not sure how it'll read as one thing when it's put together for whatever collection it'll end up in, but it's okay. It's okay, but kind of like main story is the meat as it should be, but it's not doing the same kind of world building around like the detective backup is. But to be fair, the detective backup's the only one that I still like. It's the only one that I actually kind of, even though it's changed hands in terms of who's writing it, I'm still into it every time. It's just been doing really smart stuff. So even if it has one-off issue in the backup, I'll still try the next backup probably, assuming it goes back to someone else, because they've proven enough with that one. But there you go. That's Joker. Good issue overall though. Good focused issue. I
was understanding that as the origin for Lady Bane. So.
Yeah, and it's very much her issue, because even though it's the back half of the main story is her origin flashback stuff where she's explaining it all to Gordon and explaining what her new motives are, the first half is almost entirely her action sequence as well. So this entire issue is a spotlight for Lady Bane. It's like, here's her in action. This is how good she is. She's enough of a badass that you kind of want to root for her a little bit. Even ripping off Interpoli's arms like an over the top. It seems like a Jason Voorhees like moment of just
you had me at rip arms.
Yeah. But then it becomes a bit more interesting. You get this kind of sympathetic, like, I'm kind of a monster. I know I'm a monster. I'm designed to be a monster, but I at least want to aim my monsterness in a direction that's worthy of it. So Gordon, be my conscience. It's an interesting vibe. It's an interesting idea. But this is the thing, though. If Gordon is going to be our conscience, not that she ever uses that word, I'm kind of putting that word in myself, but if he does become her conscience, then effectively, ultimately, he has to stop her from killing Joker, because that would be the right thing, you know, in a ethical sense. Until you get into the ethical debate of, you know, the amount of harm that Joker causes, is there a point where it is unethical to not kill him? Which, you know, is a debate that people like to bring up from time to time. So, good. Joker issue 8. Not bad. If you're enjoying this journey of Jim Gordon and all these supporting characters, and again, very little Joker. He's treated like the boogeyman. He's very rarely actually there, and it works quite well.
And you can't kill the boogeyman.
I mean, I love the movie you're referencing, but the new movies reference that moment so much. If I never hear the phrase "evil dies tonight" again, I'll be perfectly happy. Yeah, enjoy that movie tonight, Matt.
I'm trying to get there now. I texted my wife, and there's a bunch of dramas I've been recording, and I'm just like, I just need, tell me how many tickets I need to get, please. Just, and when I say drama, it's like actual people's keys got broken off in their car, and they had to call a locksmith. And okay, I get it, but just tell me who's gonna be there. That's all.
Just make it a couple. And the less people it is, the easier it is to organize. Just go.
100%. This is still only 4 people. You know, I might just call and be like, you know, we're watching it at home, even though I don't want to do that. I want to watch it on the big screen, but
it's on the cock. Man. Watch it on the cock.
Yeah, Peak October.
It's on the cock.
Yeah, but I like scary movies in the theater, so you know.
Watch it on the cock. You can watch Halloween Kills on the cock.
Stop saying that.
This is my new thing. They called the streaming service Peacock. I am now referring to it as the cock. You can watch reruns of The Office on the cock.
I hate it.
I saw the episode where Jim and Pam got married on the cock this weekend.
Okay. All right, let's go.
All right, that'll take us to the part of the show where we pick our favorites of the week, favorite pile / more, favorite cover, favorite art, and rank the top 5 books, or however many we read. I think I technically only read 4 books, but one of them was Urban Legends, so it felt like much more than that. I might still catch up on I Am Batman for next issue, but I knew Connor wasn't going to be here and you were, so I prioritized Urban Legends because I knew you were going to read some of that at least for conversation's sake. So, all right, Matt, what is your panel / moment of the week?
It's gonna come from the Batman Imposter,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the page with the Bat creature as she's trying to put together who Batman is, and I just that creature Sorrentino, like, it's so different from the rest of his art, and it's almost black and white, contrasting with the colors. It's a really it made me go, oh wow.
This is a cruel week for this because I feel like between Strange Adventures and The Imposter, there's like numerous moments I could be picking for this. And I'm really torn. I'm really torn for a number of reasons. Like, am I going with a really good art moment? Am I going for a really good emotional beat moment? Because Strange Adventures, damn it, has those.
Yeah.
You know. So I think I'm going to go with the emotional peak of the week, which is Alana explaining, like, after Terrific accuses her of spinning stories, of like just explaining how things get turned into stories, and then she cries as she says that. I think that page is probably the peak. But I was very tempted to go with Ratcatcher opening up his heart to what's clearly the imposter Batman and Imposter, because I think that's a really good moment, because you feel kind of this dread and sympathy for him, which I think is really well handled. So, but yeah, that's my pick. All right, cover of the week. I would say, I mean, obviously the main cover and even the variants for Imposter are very good. I think though, I have to go with the Strange Adventures cover. I'm like, the Shaner one is beautiful, but I think I have to go with the main cover, which is the Gerads one, which is Alana basically pasting up wallpaper over Adam Strange with Terrific. So it's basically the issue 1 of Strange Adventures, but she's like putting up the new like wallpaper of the new billboard, if you will, of Mr. Terrific. Partly because the art's so good, but partly just because of the symbolism and how much it ties into the story. And almost how this became almost more of a Terrific story, at least in terms of what they're going to tell her daughter. I think it just works really well for what the story's doing. What's your pick, Matt?
So I was going to take that one, but in trying to mix things up, I want to give shouts out to the Wonder Woman variant. I think that's Cloonan.
Okay.
Doing a variant. I think it looks very nice.
I thought you were going to say Frisian, because it's always Frisian.
No, it's not Frisian this time. But no, I'm going to go with the Strange Adventures, the Shaner one, which is the reverse of the first issue, but Rand's on fire. So we're looking at that, it's behind, it's basically what Adam Strange is looking at. So we're seeing him from behind, and it's just Rand on fire. It's
just fire. There's a little bit of sky at the top. But I think my favorite part of that, I mean, obviously it's gorgeous art, but my favorite part of it, bizarrely, is the fact that the Strange Adventures text at the top is transparent, so you can see the sky through it and the flames. I don't know why, but there's something about that being empty. Like, it's like this is the fake one, so this is an empty text. There's something I think really symbolic about that. Like, all right, cool. Art of the week, Matt.
All right, I'm gonna do it before I feel bad about it, but I'm gonna give it to Sorrentino for the Imposter. It's really tough not to give it to Mitch and Doc, but
it's tough. You feel like you're just jumping on the hot new thing by giving it to the Imposter when Gerads and Shaner have been there for 12 issues and it's been exceptional throughout. But I think I kind of have to agree and just nudge it to Sorrentino.
Yeah,
because it's that damn good.
It's not because it's new. It's mainly because it's Sorrentino, and I just feel like it's really him. Like,
but we haven't had Sorrentino like properly for a while.
But I feel it's him going whole like into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Rank your books, Matt.
All right. So number 1's gonna be Strange Adventures. Number 2 is going to be The Imposter. Number 3 is going to be Superman and the Authority. Number 4 is gonna be Wonder Woman, and then I guess 5 is the one story I read in Urban Legends.
Cool. My number 1's going to be Strange Adventures. My number 2 is The Imposter. So we're just together on that. Yeah. It's a little bit harder for my 3 and 4 because, like, I think I would probably go Joker at number 3 and Urban Legends at number 4. And I think ultimately that comes to, I mean, maybe it would still be that way, but Urban Legends ultimately, I was really into one story and was just kind of lukewarm on the rest of it by and large. So, yeah, so that's number 4. So there you go. well, I'll tell you what's coming next week then. From DC Comics. Now, remember before I tell you this that there's going to be a special bonus edition of the show with myself and Connor talking about all the news that comes out of fandom tomorrow at the time of recording. But at the time you hear this, yesterday or possibly earlier today, depending when you get this episode. But the point being is that there'll be another episode this weekend with Connor talking about all that news. Probably less to do with the comics themselves and more to do with movies, TV shows, video games, but of course all DC Comics related. But coming next week, comic wise though, on the 20th of October, we have Batman 115, Nightwing 85, The Flash 775, Batman Catwoman issue 8, Catwoman 36, Superman Son of Kal-El issue 4, Suicide Squad issue 8, Green Lantern issue 7, Legends of the Dark Knight issue 6, Shazam issue 4, Catwoman Lonely City issue 1. I'm forgetting what that is.
That's the Cliff Chang Black Label book.
With Jock. Oh, that's just the variant. That's the variant cover. Okay, that's fine. I mean, I still want to try it probably, but curious. Batman Secret Files Peacekeeper 1 issue 1. I kind of forgot that was the thing. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Batman vs Bigsby: A Wolf in Gotham issue 2, Black Manta issue 2, Suicide Squad King Shark issue 2, Nubia and the Amazons issue 1, Refrigerator Full of Heads issue 1. Oh, I'm interested in that one.
Sorry for that.
Wonder Woman Day Special Edition issue 1, and Scooby-Doo Where Are You 112. So a fairly busy week next week, depending on which ones you're wanting to read, but I'd say there's at least a good half dozen or so exciting books coming out next week. There's a lot of big titles there.
Yeah.
So, we have a Tom King book and 2 Tom Taylor books for a start. I mean, that's exciting times. So we'll see you next week for all that juicy goodness. But very cool. So yeah, I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Boardnow, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. Not Stanley.
Excelsior.
Quiet now. Do you know, Tim, who hadn't been on for a while because he was off break, first time he heard the Patreon list, the producer list, after his time off, he made the same joke as you, Matt. I want you to know that on Screams After Midnight.
That's good. Yes. I've almost watched Leprechaun 3 times, but I don't want to become Tim, so that's why I haven't.
I mean, I can't recommend Leprechaun. I can't recommend Leprechaun 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6.
When does he go to space?
That's 4.
Okay.
And it stars Heidi, the tool girl from Home Improvement.
Interesting.
And Leprechaun gets a lightsaber at one point, so you know.
Those movies are so weird.
So that's the thing. But yeah, so you can support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. And you can, of course, also get the show early at the $5 tier specifically. You get the show a day early. So if you're interested in doing that and helping keeping all the content coming, go over, have a look, see if you're interested. If you don't want to do that or can't, don't feel bad about it, because you can support us for free by simply hitting the like button, subscribing, dinging the bell for notifications, commenting down below if you're on YouTube. If you listen to the audio podcast version on iTunes, Podcast Addict, or wherever you get podcasts from, give us a 5-star review. That helps out a bunch. Share us on Twitter. You can find us on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. And I think that's all my plugging that I have to do. But I'll just remind you once again, extra special bonus episode discussing the fandom news with myself and Connor, which is a twofold thing. 1, the news won't be so late. 2, Connor will be on an episode this week. And 3, that last one's debatable if it's a positive or not. And 3, it means that the news, when we talk about it, won't be a week late on next week's show. And also keeps it a bit... it means next week's show won't balloon in size with all the books if we've already talked about the fandom stuff. So that's all the win-wins. So it's a win-win-win-win-win, and then Connor gets to be on an episode, which is maybe the questionable one. But that's the plan. So thank you very much for joining us once again. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
Hey, Pete. Evil dies tonight.
Shut up, you prick.